region, with a lot of teams having the ability to jump up the leaderboard with just a good performance in the weeks to come. Alliance make up for the rough first 2 days with a 9-kill win in the final game of day 3, pushing them up to 12th in the standings. And we've got some roster shifts as Kashera's team Vamo Kiera parts ways with their South American import Kings and pick up Cash's old duo Postkill. Will the change be enough to propel them up from their current spot in 16th? Only time will tell. Pro League is back this weekend as we kick off the second round robin with APAC South back in action on February 3rd. Make sure you join us for all the action on broadcast and follow us on socials for all the news and updates as they happen. Welcome back to year 4 of NA ALGS Split 1 Day 4 and happy
おはようございます。昨日お疲れ様でした。ありがとうございます。
I am
お
so
疲れ様でした。
excited because last week we saw the end of the first round robin run. So we're
ありが
going
とうござい
back
ま
around
す。
and we're going to see teams A and
おは
B
ようご
go
ざい
back
ま
at
す。
it again. And today I am joined
はい、ということで
by
ね、
Sir on set. Hello.
NA のね、ミラーしていきましょうか。A vs B の TSM がいる、TSM とダークゼロがいるブロック。このブロックは、こんな感じ。LG、ダークゼロと LG、そして TSM がいるという激アツグループ。
And of course, joining us is the wonderful Gaskin. Hello.
この3チームでね、激アツブロックをね、一緒にミラーしていきましょうか。
Very excited for North America, and I can't wait to see what these teams are going to do. It's quite tight at the top between some of the biggest and best teams, but I'm sure they're ready to put on a show.
You are so lucky that you live
おはようございます。
away, all right?
おはよ
You're
う。
lucky that you're quite a few distance away from me because we would
お
fight.
はようございます。
Anyways, so Octane's heirloom is the best, but anyways, I'm very excited for NA today. We obviously have a lot of teams playing that we have already seen, and I know that the chat is extremely excited for, but we do have to talk about some team announcement news that did drop. So we're going to be talking about that, and obviously leading into match day number 4. Now, first up, we do have Space Station
あ、そうですね。スペースステーションゲーミング SSG が、もう一回加入発表と。SSG のロースターはフレックスフォニー、ザイニュー、この3人が入ったと。SSG。おはようございます。おはよう。皆さんちゃんと起きましたか？月曜日ですけど、確かに通勤電車が見てます。ありがとうございます。月曜日ですけど、見ていきましょうか。まあ多分みんなが見てる頃にはもう終わる頃には11時とかだけどね。
How do you feel about this announcement?
Yeah, very excited for Game Gladiators to be back in the scene. I mean, they had a team in EMEA for a while, a North American team as well. I mean, I think that's fantastic to see any sort of organization to branch out into different regions. And I think these guys are going to kill it. They say see you at the Coliseum, so all right, we'll see you there.
Yeah, I love that statement so much. That's so cool. And yes, here is the
PLP が SSG になったという感じですね。
All the success with SSG because it was all his doing, right? Obviously.
It was not. Just to clear that up.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's take a look at the overall standings. Now we did see
このグループは激アツっすね。さあ現状の順位、ダークゼロ、LG、TSM この3チームがね、このグループにいるので A 対 B に。
Yeah, and this is where the bonus points that were added to the format could come into effect, right? Because if you are winning groups, then you are going to be very close to people. Dark Zero, they were able to get victory. LG were able to get a victory.
さあ
TSM not far
この
behind
中
as
に
well.
TSM
You can have a very
ダークゼロ
dominant match week where you do
そし
find bonus
て
points, then it is really
LG という
going to elevate you through. And now I see
現状の
Elevate's
3位チーム
elevate
1位2位3位がね入ってるというね
rosters here in North America, and this is how it looks right
ど
now,
うなり
but
ま
I
すか
guarantee
ね
it's gonna
本
look
日は
very different when we come around once more.
Yeah, and then of course on our second page on set,
てか
we
ESL
do
つい
see
てた
Oblivion and Optic Gaming and Meat Lovers all lined up here in 11th to 20th place.
We do indeed, and I think we have to always talk about the bottom of the leaderboards. We always talk about the top as well, but there's a couple of teams, Oxygen Esports, I think very surprising to see them down there. They're going to make a change ahead of today with where they're dropping. We'll get into that a little bit later. FaZe had a good game day one, but
いや起きれてよかったっすね
too great.
NA 起きれるかどうかちょっと怪しかったけど気合で起きました NA は今日見ないとなと思ってこの激アツの A 対 B
But a lot of these teams at the bottom here, Exet as well. Then I mean, surprising to see them down there, but a lot of work to be done and a lot of time still ahead.
Yeah, I mean these are teams that are obviously very good at
カレルさん的に NA のプロリーグ突破できる可能性がある A パックのスチームってどこですか A パックのスチーム A パックのスチームは抜けるっていう意味だったらディジェクトリドル抜けれるかなちょっとそれわかんないディジェクトとフナティックは多分確実に抜けれそう他はちょっとわからんなディジェクトフナティックあとは流れかなリドルも抜けれるのかなどうなんだろうフナティックとディジェクトは抜けれるだろうねおはようございますおはよう
Obviously, LG is here, Flat is here. We're going to see a lot of action.
めちゃくちゃ眠いっす
Indeed, and I think the story of Dark Zero and TSM is one that we've all heard, but the story continues, right? It's a battle at the top between those two. LG certainly stepping up, and I think their last week was absolutely phenomenal. So LG really starting to
A vs B の紹介
actually expected, and their performances have been really, really good, and I'm looking forward to seeing how they get on today.
Yeah, I was one of those people. I honestly thought LG was going to be a little bit slower in finding their footing, but they actually found their rhythm as a team. And you know what? While we're here, let's just go ahead and talk about the teams that are doing better than expected, which is obviously Luminosity. We do have to talk about that because I really thought that after game day number 1, they were going to take things slower, but they really stunned us with their performance day 2. And it's not that day 1 was bad by any means. It was not. So LG is made up by Funk, Sweet, and Slayer, and they're second place overall
A グループの注目チーム LG コンプレックスドロップインゲームポイントの比率はね LG は 50-50 ほぼコンプレックスはワルテッチのが得意ドロップインゲーミングはストーンポイントのが少し得意という感じのこの A かな
Going into that, let's talk about complexity on set.
Yeah, Kimchi, Monsoon, and Lou, what a game day they had in their second one. 21 points they managed to put up. It was only 8 points in the first week, but Monsoon started picking up a Sentinel and certainly teaching some people some severe lessons with that weapon in that second game day. And I'm interested to see how they get on today. I did see that Kimchi may be hoping some internet comes back because there was a storm in the area or something, but hopefully they can play as that full roster. World's Edge has been their more successful, map in comparison to Stormpoint, but still a good amount of points being picked up on both.
From a World's Edge team to a Stormpoint team, we've got Drop-In Gaming, who might not have had the best of times in A and B last time we saw them around, but I mean, Stunny, Crook, and Jay are an incredible squad who in day 2, or match 2, should I say, really started to find their form and find their footing.
8時20分とかだったっけ
Genuine threat to everyone in this lobby who have to be concerned if they end up going up in a 3v3 against them.
Yeah, and we just got word from our producers that Complexity will be taking in Reptar as a sub for match 1 until
20分ぐらいか
internet sorted out, which we're actually in kind of the same area, so this
20分15分とかが
it almost feels like we're in Stormpoint, right? It's great. It's setting the theme. So very excited about that. I know that was bad.
おはようございます配信お疲れ様でしたありがとうございますありがとう
So we talked about teams
気合で起きました今日は
performing way better than we expected. So let's go ahead and
スイートが NRG への違和感がすごい。確かに。なんかスイートって絶対的 NRG のなんか顔って感じだったからな。それが終わっちゃったってのは少し悲しいよね。
I'm a pro player for Drop In Gaming. Our current roster consists of Karma, also known as Jaeon, Crook, Assault, and our coach Kapreem. So about a year ago, I was with a different roster with Drop In Gaming. I wasn't the happiest with that roster, so I ended up letting go of 2 of those players, and Crook and Oreos ended up coming
絶
up.
対的 NRG の顔が。
Boosted them up, and eventually Sentinels took Oreos from us, so we emergency replaced him with Karma. No, we actually won't be changing anything this time around, but we're looking.
そう思うとね、NRG ってアセウもそうだけど、まあエースも抜かして、もう NRG 自体に apexlegends 系のストリーマーも残ってないもんね。エースはセンチネルに行ったし、誰も残ってないね。
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think every team at this point is just hoping no one is going to be contesting them because we've seen how much it can harm and hurt those teams. So they're going to try and loot a little bit faster, get out of their POI a little bit faster. They had success in match day number 2, so we'll see if that carries on here until their 3rd attempt.
Absolutely. And as promised, we are going to be talking about those teams that are performing exactly where we expected. So I have to start by talking about TSM. And I know, oh, Stella, you talked about TSM last week. And I will continue to talk about TSM because they are a team that are in this for the long haul. So TSM with Verhulst, Imperial Hal, and
TSM、AvsB、Dark Zero 最近の調子いい3チームですね。TSM はストップの方がまあ調子はそうと。AvsB、ザック・メイザー率いる AvsB はワールドエッジ、ストーンポイントはほぼ 50-50。ダークゼロも 50-50 って感じですね。ダークゼロのポイントだけなんかおかしいな。70-78。おかしいですね、ダークゼロ。まあ、今日も調子がいいかどうか分かりませんけどね、ダークゼロ。今日もよかったらダークゼロの強さ本物と。安定してますね。ダークゼロどちらかというとグループというかこの NA の予選はいい結果で上がってきたことは結構少なかったんだけどね。今までの流れを見ると。
Some of their rotates they're making and some of the difficult paths that they're having to take on some far zones and how they're managing to navigate that. So shout out to Zach Major and some of the calls that he's making, but his 2 teammates backing him up all along the way with their fragging ability. I think Elevate have looked really strong.
I like that you picked Elevate because, you know, the same percentages as Dark Zero, but Dark Zero are doing it with far more points. Zero Sykes and Jem Burton, I mean, I was wondering how Sykes would be on this roster. Would he fit in? Would he deal with the pressure? Absolutely. Listens so well to instruction that's coming from the IGL. Will always be either initiating the fight or joining the fight at the right time. And I love the addition of Sykes, and I really do think this Dark Zero roster is just going to carry on going from strength to strength here, Stella. And they are #1 team at the moment in North America.
I know, and they're good for it. I am so excited to see the performances that all of these teams give us today. And I do want to talk about other teams that we might want to kind of boost up and we want to see them do better, right? Because we're obviously going into our next round of round robin. So I want to talk about DNO Gaming, Dudes Night Out. They have a solid roster with 2 ex-Sentinel players, but they were really struggling to grasp at points in survival past 10th placed in most matches.
DNO Gaming, Oxygen, Optic.
A little bit stronger with 67% of their points coming from there, but 33% on World's Edge. You want to be strong on this map. That is a classic to Apex Esports.
ストポが67ポイント。オキシジンが54ポイントワールドエッジ。オプティックストーンポイントが60ポイントって感じですね。
Let's talk about Oxygen Esports.
Let's talk about Oxygen Esports because the best has to come for them because they have been
そろそろ始まるか
standards and they've made a change and it's not in the lineup, it's in the POI they're going to be dropping at. They were dropping over at Command Center. They have swapped. It's a house swap, it's a POI swap with the team who are at their old home of Barometer. So Oxygen Esports will be back to Barometer. They know those rotates so well on Storm Point and I think it's going to be a big contributing factor to them having a little bit more success than what we've seen from them so far.
And then Optic Gaming, they have found more success on Storm Point, even with Down Beast maybe not finding as many ring consoles as they would have liked, as Onset was mentioning earlier. But I kind of was expecting more from Optic. I think they're such an insane team, insane fighting team as well, especially with the likes of Skittlecakes, who will I always say is one of the scariest players to go up against. I want to see more from Optic. I know what they're capable of. We saw what they did at LAN. We saw what they did at World Championships.
CMEA 見たので NA 見たら出ます。EMA どうだったんだろう。EMA EMEA 見てみようかな。エレメント6取ったんだ。
Thank you very much, Stella. I'm destroying stuff on my desk as we go into game number 1 because I've got the jitters, Dan, because I'm a little bit nervous. I'm a little bit excited. You know how it is.
もうアライアンスも言うても5位で整うだろうね。アライアンスはなんとか耐えたね。最後。ユキの最後。耐えましたね。
We are the front runners today. We have an opportunity here to really establish ourselves as that number 1.
Yeah, it's Hal, Sweet, and Zero again, but at the same time, you've got to be looking at who's alongside them and who's actually doing some of that dirty work. Even though we can always praise the IGLs, it is a massive team game, and it is going to be a massive contribution from anyone else who's going to be a part of it. Whether it's the damage they're dealing, whether it's the positioning for support, whether it's just playing a legend that can actually give you a little bit of something in the early game.
今のポイントは何ですか？今のポイント？どれかな？今のポイントってこれ？オーバースタンディング？
EMEA certainly provided with a couple of changes here or there, and I think North America are usually
ノースかアメリカのポイントはこちら。これは日ごとに例えばこれの話だったらこの例えば先週だったら SSG が1位取った場合この SSG の1位というこの71ポイントというのが直接入るわけじゃなくて、プレイスメントポイントって感じで25ポイントが付与される。先週で言ったら SSG がここで25ポイントで COL が21ポイント2なんでね、1位2位3位4位5位6位7位8位9位とかでその順位に応じてポイントが変わってくるって感じですね。最初のストップと RZ で分かれてたやつ、あれはポイントの比率ですね。どっちで何ポイント取ってるかっていうそのチームが。ただそのあれですね、どっちが何ポイント取ってるかっていうただ単の
because there is potentially a chance where you could split off and try and find somewhere else. But I'm pretty proud of A and B for everyone finding a home and not having
比率的なものを表示してくれたって感じですね。いい意味合いは8枠。NA 以外は全部8枠。
So to speak, and just a note as well, like I said, Oxygen Esports moving back to Barometer, and if there's some Barometer zones, I'm sure they'll feel extremely happy with that. But
いい意味合い以外 NA が12枠。残りが8枠。
Terrible in some ways that Kimchi has unfortunately had the internet issue, and he's hopefully going to be back a little bit later on. But what a pickup! Reptar coming in as their substitute player. That's where you make sure you've got a sub with some real pedigree.
Oh, we do have substitutes with absolute firepower.
あれなんかあのやついない？あのやついないこれ。
There's going to be extra pressure, that's for sure. Right, Storm Point. So
なんかアナヤさん2人いるぞ。
We know how influential Conduit has been as well. Whether even if you're not having a contest in these mid-game fights, early game fights, late game fights,
アナヤさんが2人だぞ。レブナント。ここに来てレブナントが目立ってきた。少し増えてるね。少しっていうか2チームいるけど。第1マッチ。初動ファイト性能ってかな。正面いるぞ。初動ファイト用にレブナント対面ミラーレブナントなんだけど、やばい、これアルバリーかなり苦しい。さあさすがにこれはカバーに合わない。メイン距離なんで早めに中のチーム潰したい。2対2したいですね。SKRT さあこれはちょっと苦しいか。よいしょ、さあまあでもさすがに無理か。そしてフェイズ、これはウォールでのファイト。圧倒的有利ですね。これも2パーティー所属ファイトしてましたね。2パーティー、まあ4パーティーか。フェイズがザ・ウォールを取り切ったと。そして出た右下アンチ出ましたよ。右下アンチ、まあランチパッドだけど、でまだワンチャンなんかここまでは寄るんじゃないか。この3つ番までもう右下多いよ。どこでも右下やん。今シーズンのなんかマジで体感6割ぐらいは右下アンチある気がするわ。体感ね、それぐらい多いわ。マッチワンピックレート、バンガロール 100% ピック。
Yeah, complexity having to leave with a Reptar in his underwear in that white armor, but a couple of blues to play with. They're obviously looking for an early spot here and should be able to take it. That building is going to be a very good one if they can call it a home for the long game. Obviously the wall
コンプレクシー早めに入ってくるが、手前もう取ってんじゃないか。 DIG さあちょっとごっつんこしちゃった。どうするかこれ。分け合う形で守るのか。
Yeah, this is where you have to be careful because this is the period of the game where everyone is trying to claim that prime real estate. So
さあコンプレクシーも結構良かったと思うので、ポイント的にはちょっと嫌だね。ルーラピアモンスーン通期マウワンコントローラーという。
Meds are going to be burnt through, and just remember the complexity left very, very quickly. So you would imagine on their rotate, they haven't had a time to do a huge amount of looting, which means that meds are probably going to be at a premium. But it's a first opportunity for Reptar.
さあアルティメットエネルギーボリケード使って前に行く。これ何枚とグレー入れて、どっちもアクションかけないっすね。まあ戦っちゃうと別パーティーの介入があるっていうのを気にしてるんですかね。
Yeah, and they both can reside together. They don't have to take this fight, and I think that will probably be the realization that they come to here, that we're actually fine here. If the other team isn't going to be pressing us, then let's just let them be. We'll be here for the end game, and then we'll fight them later. And they can almost work together. The worry is,
いやスモークやな。スモークで10ダメージ入るからな毎回。どっちとしても戦いたくないか。早めに取ってポイント取り切るのもありだけど、まあ初動で落ちたくないっていうところもあるのかな。うわ別パーティー来た後ろから。こうなると COL が不利、時間が経つと COL が挟まれてしまうので少し不利っすね。ダークゼロはザミルからゆっくりとドライエントかな。ラッツで入ってきた。 TSM はエバックタワー。エバックどこ行くからね。結構中入ってるチーム多いから、ここは一回発射台の岩に行くんかな。
The only problem is you have to be very careful of a team moving through that spider choke on either side of you or mirroring you from what we saw. But you can already see from the position of Verholz that it's a pretty good spot to deny line of sight, especially from the high ground that we saw the likes of SSG playing. You can see GG up on the crane as well. And it allows you to play for the long game, and it is also a place that a lot of the times we see this end circle pull towards. So as long as they can watch their backs here, a couple of cues from Verholz is going to give them the info if someone does try and sneak up. But this is a good rotate from TSM. I think they're going to be pretty happy.
さあジュラシックパーク、これは逃げれないんじゃないか。見えてない。エッジ持ってるけどいいダメージしっかりと返して、ネイティブゲーミングは取ったと。ランボーがいますからね。ランボーは一時期ダークゼロとゴタゴタがった人ですね。これ別か？カオティックマッチ。これ別っぽいですね。
Yeah, it is, and they're actually going to try and make a move down through the low ground here, which is risky, but at the same time, it could pay off here if you are able to get past all of the commotion. And I like going low, because going low, you can avoid a lot of the sight lines that are happening above you. And as long as you're all working together, as long as you have a plan of action of where you want to end up, then you should be fine. And it looks like they are going to be rewarded with it, and they have a building to work with. They have some safe space, some safe haven. And they won't grief too much as they try to make that rotation.
どこにいるかでね。
As we can see, only a few teams not within that circle. FaZe, Eternal.
ああ、純粋に破滅の海岸上側が結構強いね。ダークゼロなんかすごくね。ダークゼロすっごい広く取ってんだけど。ダークゼロメンバー変わった？ダークゼロメンバー変わってなくね？変わった？ダークゼロ変わってました
？Eternal who might think about moving that way. You've got FaZe as well. But again, if you're one of those teams rotating from the north through one of those choke points, you know it's going to be a risky move to make. So TSM in a great spot. Dark Zero also watching the south side of this zone. They're going to be careful because Oxygen Esports are coming around that corner right now, and they're a team with a lot to prove this week.
Yeah, there's a few teams that really have to prove themselves, and maybe it's getting to that point where we've seen enough to realize that they can compete.
マップの画面の時のチームの色がマップの下？あ、これはね、色とマップの矢印の色というか、マップの矢印の色とチームの色が同じ色だよ。同じだった？あ、同じか。びっくりしたわ。また変わったなと思った。知らない間に。
We mentioned how they might try and move on a northern rotate. Well, that's exactly what they are doing at the moment, and TSM are going to have to be very aware of them moving in behind them. Elsewhere, you can see DNO playing on the cannon.
じゃないとダークゼロ。ザインやばいよとか言ってないもんな。ザインやばいよとか言ってんのに、これでまたサイクス抜かしたら、サイクスやばいよってもう何人やばいよすんねん。なっちゃうからな。
Will be fine if only one team pushes them, but my worry for teams like DNO and for TSM as well, who are on that northern side, if two teams approach at the same time, suddenly your lack of cover is really going to hurt you, so you have to have a kind of plan B to either get out of the position or just push a team into aggressive. So
このポジションを
certainly got to be those considerations as we go back to drop-in gaming. They're still
もうどっちも戦わずにスモークでダメージチクチクとやってる感じかな。PLP が SSG になってますね。チームというかチーム入ってスペースステーションゲームに PLP が入ったと。PLP はザイニュー、フレックス、フォニーの3名ですね。
Do you have any butter? And then
just keep going. Can I have your Wi-Fi code?
Yeah. I'm the one who complains if your Wi-Fi password changes after I've cracked it after a year. Anyway, FaZe, they're making their rotate from the north. And this is a team who are facing up against Eternal potentially having won the contest. And I think for a team like FaZe, after a pretty shaky game day number 2, winning that contest first game down with players like this fills you with confidence, and Snipe Down is a
元フューリアの2人を入れたパンダゼロドリッキ、そしてスナイプダウン。スナイプがフェロバリケード。いや、これは対面返してますね。カーターがカタリストの壁返して当たっていくようです。ちょっとぐるぐるとローテーション、右展開と左展開。さあスナイプダウン落として、これはさすがに有利か。いやフェイズもいいダメージ出してる。これで2対1だったのでフェイズとしては引かざるを得ない状況か。 フェイザーこれでどうするか。ゼラトリッキンのみ付き合い入れて場所分かってる。味方の蘇生から入る。爪のための爪を補正するアクサー。上から落ちてしまいましたね。2人なんで2対1で取り切ってもいいですけど、味方の蘇生をしたい。そんな感じだね。漁夫もいないんで。降りていきましたね。これで安全に起こせそうですね。ダークゼロはレプター。これは COL とさっきのファイトかな。 DIG と COL が同じとこ入ったか、それをそうだね、ダークゼロが入ってきた。ダークゼロ蘇生間に合って、さあこのポジションをダークゼロが奪いに来る。
One of those friendly neighbors was just wiped out by Dark Zero by the looks.
Yeah, dropping gaming are going to fall, and that means that Dark Zero, they're going to be the only part of this building, I believe, that is going to be safe when the zone closes next. So Dark Zero make their play, they take their fight, and most importantly,
そして戻っていく。ドロップインザゲーミングが挟まれて、ダークゼロがポイントをしっかりと伸ばしに来ましたね、今回は。ボールの長さとかって意味あります？多分関係ないと思うけどな。シャーキーとなんか、シャーキーはエーパックサウスのディバインっていうチームに今いますね。FFL とか出てるんで FFL とか見てくれたら結構わかるかも。さあこれ結構厳しい移動だな。上がっていくためにフェールバリケードを使ったが、さあこの後上がりきれるか。本日アルティメット帰ってきて、まあ一応自分たちのアルティメットがあるから耐えれはするが、さあフェールバリケードは切れたとは怖い。耐えれているネイティブ。いやLF8 3チームいますね、これで。さあこっちはブラックホールでいいの入る。1枚を脅しますね。ノックダウンで防げる。まあでも結構時間ないですね。残り時間50秒という状況。スモーク焚いて右側の視線を切ってから前に行く。さあでも別パーティーにされた。さあザップもない。なんかオプティックも入ってきた。何パーティーいんだ？ 4 パーティーこのザパイロン側にいる。そしてネイティブは起こせたっすね。ネイティブ起こせましたね。復活。先にエレベート落ちちゃった。挟んでたはずなんですけども先に落とされてしまったと。そしてまだ LG、TSM、ダークゼロは残ってます。やばいな、ヘリ早っ。12部隊めちゃくちゃヘリ早いぞ。ヘリ早っ。そしてダークゼロが視線伸ばす。ダークゼロジェンバーテンポイント拾いまくる。さあこの発射台からの移動、発射台からの移動かなり苦しそう。降りた際にどこに行くか決まってるか。次のポジション多分カタリストのスキルが置いてるポジションですね。 ダークゼロ今3ポイント。このポジから結構キルポイント拾えてますね。もともと白白青という状況で入ってきたんですけど、結果的には紫3枚という。さあ TSM と GG のファイト。 TSM 春の体力やばいぞ。さあ上も気にしながら下とのファイト。さあ上から視線取ってくる。さあ TSM どうやってアクションするか。上も気にしてなくない。上から先に狙う。さあこのファイトかなり難しい。全的に TSM は不利だ。さあ HP があるハルとレップスが前に出る。いやいい開始っすね。ダメージ的にも悪くはない。さあクラストが前に来る。さあ先にレップスが落ちる。春も落ちて、ここは TSM が落ちますね。さすがに課題の有利があったか。さあダークゼロはポイント伸ばしてますね。GG がディノゲーミング落とすと。そして LG スイートが残ってる。さあダークゼロが1戦目ですか。やっぱダークゼロか。 LG ラストスイート。ヒルポイント2ポイント取ってるが、さすがに真ん中すぎるか。ハイドスイート。なんかスイート最近ハイドしてるな。 NA の F ちゃん。敵のコンジットル止まる。早めに前行きたい。いや上からの視線が苦しい。ダークゼロ降りてくる。いやダークゼロ降りてくる。ポイント伸ばすぞ。さあゼロが落ちるがダークゼロ蘇生通りそう。キルポイント7で5位という今現状。蘇生もできる。 SSG 狙うかこれ。でも狙えないっすね。
to try and influence this final circle. SSG have held this position for quite some time, and actually one member of SSG is looking down towards Dark Zero, so they know Dark Zero are there. Oxygen are just slightly north.
Dark Zero 安定してんな。
You have Flat who hold the entirety of the northern side right now.
SSG, or as Dan Gaskin coined them, the Jack lads, who are in a great position.
さあ SSG は加入一発目のチャンピオンですかね。これ取ったらスイート残ってる。 HP すっごい激色だけど。ダークゼロ上がってきた。さあフォニー気づけるか。でもかなり苦しいぞダークゼロ。ペルバリケードで一旦エリアを取るがジェンバー点が落ちる。さすがに苦しいかあのポジション。ジェーン落ちてしまった。まあポジション的にあそこでキル拾えたから、まあ、よしと合ってんのかな。ダークゼロはダークゼロどうやって上がるか気合でしたね。完全に気合で上がったね。さあフェロバリケード消えたら退屈とゼロが少し危ない。最終円 LG ツイートがまず落ちると GG フラットと SSG ダークゼロ。さあダークゼロの措置を捨てないように前来るのがオキシジェン。ここはオキシジェンが落としますが、このポジションどうだ。フラット側はフェロバリケードを使って一旦下がって2チーム当たらせるように引いてますね。2チーム当たらせるように引くようなプレー。右と左をぶつけたい感じかな。さあここは GG SSG の1枚落として、まあこれも主観でフラットかなり有利ですね。まあこれ来たか。地球平面説来た。チーム地球平面説。フラット。地球は 平たいと、そういう意味のフラット。地球平面説。
It seems like they were more than ready for match day 4 here in North America. They turn it into a victory, and as you say, they just were able to just gain a little bit more ground each time as they pushed up, and then to gain the height was everything, especially with the Dark Veils being down. They were able to look and peek over and grief those teams, so great positioning from them in the final circle.
Yeah, great knowledge of where they were.
前もフラット俺が見たとき、
Didn't have to force anything. They knew that SSG were going to have to fight in that position and just waiting to pick the pieces up. It was a simple end game for them to take care of, and there's always a fight you have to take before that kind of rolls you into that good position. So shout out to Flat, they're going to be the winners of game number 1, but some of our big teams were, like I mentioned, still involved in that game down right until the very end. Yeah, Dark Zero inside that top 5. LG, I think Sweet managed to rat his way to the top 5, if I'm not mistaken, at least. And obviously you had SSG new back to Apex Legends, and PLP, formerly obviously known as, continuing some form we saw previous.
Yeah, everyone looked very impressive. Mark, I'll let you go and bring Stella back into the fray here to see her thoughts and discuss things. I mean, Stella, an interesting match one. I mean, 5 squads remaining.
第1ゲームの結果出てましたね。第1ゲームこれ、フラット、先ほどの地球平面説が21ポイント、オキシジンが14ポイント、ダークゼロ12ポイント、SSG9 ポイント、LG6 ポイント、コンプレキシー6ポイント、T 戦も少し落ち込んで5ポイント。まあ落ち込んではないけどな。少し少なめですね。ダークゼロ安定してます。
Yes, and Sweet did get eliminated at 5th spot, but that placement is pretty good. And TSM was out at 9th place, which I was a little bit surprised about. But again, storm point rotations, it's really easy to get caught out of circle, and that's kind of what happened to a lot of people.
リージョンによってファイトやピック率がちょっとずつ違って見てたら面白いんですね。まあそうで本当にいろいろと違うプレイスタイルもあるからね。動きも違うからおもろいですよね。そういったところは。リージョンによって違うんだと。
8th isn't the end of the world for DNO as well. You have to try and gain as many points as possible, even in the unfavorable zones, and that's what will make you have consistent points, and that's how you will find yourself just climbing the leaderboards and getting closer to playoffs. Speaking of, I think we can look at the match results and we can just see how everything's looking, Stella.
Yeah, absolutely. And Flat coming in first, of course, with 21 total points, 9 kills, which is pretty impressive. That is a lot higher than even Oxygen Esports and Dark Zero, who we saw absolutely fragging out. Now, Dark Zero is only 2 kills behind, but of course, with Flat getting the placement points, they do jump up in score.
Yeah, very impressive 21 points, but down at the bottom we saw Skirt unfortunately went down in the early stages because of that contest that went down. It didn't really work out for their opposing team too much either. FaZe, even though they won their contest, weren't really able to move quick enough. Again, that is sometimes the detriment of being in a contest, that even if you win it, you are so far behind in the rotation race that you are going to struggle to make your way. I mean, it was a difficult rotation anyway because it was a southern zone, but that's always going to be extra frustration for sure. Lots of gamings, Optic Gaming,
第1ゲームの結果って感じですね。あれフラットのアイコンが出なくなってる。なんで？地球平面説が地球平面説の画像が
That's how it happens. All it takes is one mention of it, and then suddenly the caster curse. It happens. I've got to be impressed. You've got to be impressed by the damage, by the way, of Nano. 2.7k damage coming out of Nano there. Very impressive, and you need players like that on your squad.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, listen, damage is all about being able to crossfire with your teammates, and it doesn't even matter. At this point, it doesn't even matter if you get the kills. It matters if your team gets the kills, and that's exactly what they were able to do. Well, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll have match number 2 ready for you.
なんか一瞬トライデント事故なかったか？映ってなかったけどトライデント事故あったな。さあ残り1分半という感じで始まりそうですね。 ALGS ロゴどこですか？ダークゼロですね、これは。完全に。ダークゼロしかなくね、これは。この広いやつ。いや、この、プレイエイペックスが流してる音源がね、たまに著作権で引っかかるから配信してて、YouTube だけバンされるんだよな。バンされるっていうか、著作権侵害で訴えられるから、音を流したくないって、どれが著作権で引っかかってるか分かんないっていうね。マジでやめてくれないかな。ハトさん、20ドルスーパーチャットありがとうございます。アレルいつもありがとう、ありがとう。なんか、スーパーチャのやつさ、なんかグッドボタン押せになってる。グッドボタン押せんだけど、かわいい。スーパーチャも変わったんすね、時代が。ありがとうございます、ハトさん。だからアイコンかわいや。
Alright, welcome back. Hi, Gaston. How was your break? Did you get some water?
Yeah, I had a minute to run to the bathroom, got some water.
ダークゼロの切り抜き見たら本当にゼロの声裏返ったりしてた。いつも裏返ってるからね。いつも声裏返って発狂してるからな。それがいつものゼロですよ。2戦目始まりそうですね。結構サクサクだ。マッパー同じです。ターンポイント。
Always helps you, and you can say the same for Flat, by the way, being signed by GG. It's always going to give you that extra little bit of a boost, and also that extra bit of, all right, we need to prove ourselves. And I don't want to say people don't try when they're not performing on a new org, but it just makes you try that little bit harder, you know. So I want to keep an eye on both of the new signings, to be honest, because they're both going to make a big impact here.
Yeah, of course. And we did see that there was a little bit of contest at the wall with FaZe and Temper today, and I think FaZe won out on that, which was great, but they also weren't really able to sustain that throughout the match because they did get 3 KP, but their placement wasn't that great.
Yeah, again, it's just one of those situations that you can win the contest, but you suddenly lose the rotate. You're going to be so far behind. It was a difficult rotate for them, though. FaZe will be hoping for a little bit of a more northern zone because sadly, when you do have to take a contest, you take so long. You need to have the time on your side.
発狂しながらエイムと立ち回りが最高だから最高峰だからすごいんだよね。確かに発狂しながらでもすごいっていう。おはようございます。今日も右下多そうですかね。1試合目は右下でしたね。そう、武器バッター左から出るというのを生かして左からパクりましたね。今回テンパーが有利か。フェイズが1枚落ちる。スナイプおじさんが死んだ。強っ。さあフェイズが全滅。今回はテンパーが取り切ると。そして SKRT とショートファイト。さあレブラント 1v1。いや、これは武器を逃げる。ワルブラレディ。
Don't take the fight initially. They're gonna look to try and get a little bit more loot to work with. We do have 2 Revenants in the lobby, by the way. One of them being Albreleli. Of course, ever since the Revenant rework, a very valuable legend to use in certain scenarios. Certainly.
今回はど真ん中ですね。ああ、これは最強岩じゃないな。ちょっと違うな。これどこだ？セトステーションか？セトステーションっぽいですね。こっちかこっちか？セトステーションのどっちかだな、多分。ダークゼロ早く入ってきそうだな、こうなってくると。サルブラかなり削られてる。 さあ初動ミラーレブラント、なんでレブラントを使ってるかって言ったら初動ファイト用のレブラントでしたね。さあアルブラかなり削られてる、削られて落とされてしまった。さあここは SKRT が全滅。さあアルブラレディチームちょっと苦しんでますね。事故った？事故りそうだったんか。ドロップインザゲームが少し移動で事故りそうだったって感じですね。トライデント自分の足だったら移動怖いっすよね。事故ったら終わりですからね。どこまで行く？ああ、この建物か？一旦建物を取って建物を切るか。ダークゼロこれ黒点してる。ダークゼロ黒点してる。黒点。ダークゼロ黒点したんだけど、世界のダークゼロ、世界を取ったあのゼロが黒点したぞ。やっぱ声優世界のゼロも苦戦するんですね。
You would say a win for sure for Dark Zero. They take control of the building now, and they're going to be chilling here for quite some time.
Elsewhere, TSM did have a ring console as well, but they're still looting in their POI. They're not going to be moving very quickly. When they saw where the zone was pulling, they decided they are going to be playing late on this one. Checkpoint also had a ring console. I don't think there was one over towards Down Beast for Optic to work with. They did have a survey beacon, but no ring console again. And that was a concern that you had brought up at the start of the show for Optic. And perhaps one of the reasons why they haven't been able to find as much success is because Down Beast certainly hasn't seen as much ring consoles.
レブは特に初動ファイト以外で採用する理由ってないですかね。まあ対面は強いかもしんないけど、まあそんなメリットあるかって言われたら、まあ 1v1 勝ってくれるぐらいしかちょっとメリットないかな。まあ、展開はできるっていうとこはいいよね。まあでもアビリティが自己完結系だからそこがちょっと弱い。味方に対してのアビリティの付与とかないのがちょっと痛いですよね。TSM は遠いのでクラフトしてから入っていくって感じですかね。
You not only have the
Craft
ability to
move.
loot in a very loot-heavy POI, but you can rotate through loot-heavy POIs and also POIs that have ring consoles and crafters and survey beacons. It is a great path to be moving through as Eternal. Speaking of paths, can they craft a path to try and push through?
そう、ちょっと危なかった隣し、正面エレベートが詰めてきたね。
And this is going to be outside of the zone shortly, so it's a fight that probably has to finish sooner rather than later.
This might be two teams who are trying to contest for that third beacon. As we can see, Eternal have the first beacon, or ring console, I should say. So they're going to have information.
じゃあローリングさんが打ってエトナル EC は逆に上を取りに行かんだ。そしてもう落とされてしまった。ザック・ベイザーが1枚キル入れてると2対3。エトナル EC の方が少し不利ですね。上で待ち構える形は作れるが、ちょっとポジション的に守れるかどうか2人でも怪しいですね。人数不利。
If I was the opposition team here, I'd just be working on high ground and force the players out here, force them to go with the circle and play this one nice and patiently.
Zone is going to be coming in though, and that's the problem because nobody really wants to be slowed down this much. Once again, you're seeing E8 with an early wingman, by the way, and we are seeing a few care package weapons dropping very early. Oh my god, that is
ラップ今195出てなかったか？アンチダメージの落ちたくね？てかバケモンみたいなウィングマンやってたけど、ウィングマンやべえなマジで。 さあここで EC がデメット。もうすぐシーズン20に変わりますが、プロリーグのプロリーグアップデートも関係あるかって、プロリーグ関係あるんですよね。結構関係あるんで、どうなるかな。今後どうなるんでしょうね。さあやっぱ右方向へとりましたね。とステーション方面、コンプレクシーが現状いいポジか。でもフラットも悪くないですね。フラット2連勝ありそうだぞ。 TSM もこの後フラットのポジションを奪えば TSM もチャンスあると。各チームセットステーション方面読んでますね今回。今回アップデートの期間7式期間みたいなのあるんですかね。アップデートっていつだっけ。あと10日後ぐらい。何日アップデ。
I'd usually say it's probably when loot hasn't really been great for you, but I mean, I don't know. Some people might just still like the thing.
I will say, by the way, this is another what I would describe as a
でも一応10日終われば、じゃあ次のこのいつだっけ。5日後終わったら、5日後って次のアップデート入ったら多分アジアフェスとか挟むから、まあ、1.5 とか2週間ぐらいは多分空きはあると思うけどね。鳴らし期間というか。
Because of that, they are another team who are probably going to have to move shortly when they see where the zone is going to be pulling as well. But at least they are going to be in a position where they could rotate south here. They don't have to go through all the commotion on that northern side.
Interested to see what the players here from DNO. They do, of course, have conduit, so they can go and craft if they needed to. And I think that Crust has decided it's a solo mission to get the Trident. Maybe think about going out towards Mill and crafting that banner to get Duplex back in the game. He did get dropped a couple of meds on his way, so maybe that's going to be the play. Or maybe it's going to be into Cenote, which is another option, of course, because there is crafting available there. So a lonely mission, but one that will come back with a friend, at least.
So TSM Dark Veil goes down as they approach the previous match winners flat. And it looks like they did enough just to scare them away. It's not going to be a straight fight that's going to go down.
TSM が敵のポジションを奪うと、まあ、フラットがアンパーティーしかいなかったので取りやすいですねポジション。
TSM have that ring console information, so they weren't blindsided by this pull, and that's one of the benefits of them playing late. Remember, TSM had one of the furthest rotates to be making here, but because they played it slow, because they went through an area where they could hit that ring console for the zone 3 pull, they can now reap the benefits of it.
Yeah, and sometimes you're always thinking like, wow, we didn't get prio to this zone, like how are we going to approach it? This is the benefit of planning a rotate and pathing yourself in a way where you can collect information that becomes of greater value towards the end game. That third beacon, that third ring console, I'll call it a beacon forever, by the way, everybody, is going to be, like you say, completely and utterly invaluable for them being in one of the best positions now. Everybody else who had banked on it.
さあやっぱコンプレクシーががっつりてる。まあこのアンチもセットステーションのここ寄るって分かりやすいからね。こうなるとコンプレクシーめちゃくちゃいいポジションですね。フラットと TSM これぶつかるとこのポジションになっちゃうかな。記念区域側取っちゃうし、でまだこのタイミングは仕掛けないっぽいですね。周りのチームにいるので。
They have a real opportunity to not just get into the late game here, but I mean, I won't call it just yet, but there's always the chance of winning from these positions. But certainly that zone could still pull away from them as we get into final circle. So we'll have to see. I won't get ahead of myself. As Dark Zero are making their move, they are being certainly spotted out, and the ultimates have gone down.
ダークゼロもポジションどうするか。
And it looks like they've successfully rotated through. But this is what I was saying. They can go south here. They don't have to go through the northern side, but there will be teams on the south as well. Even though there's more teams on the northern side, there are a couple that Dark Zero would still have to go through here on the south.
they're also going to have to deal with Duplex, who is going to be looking for revenge right now.
It's
back in the game. The solo
Duplex.
mission was was successful. SEAL team Crust managed to get him back into the game.
アークゼロは生身で行くんか。多分エバックないんか。エバックあるな。いやタイクスが捕まってる。さあギリギリ歩いてきたが、さあディノが蘇生した後に怒ってきたダークゼロ許さねえと北戦しやがってと。
I don't think Dark Zero have an evac tower either. I was going to say if they are really in a bad situation.
いやいい開始ゼロ。
Maybe it doesn't matter if suddenly the
さあディノを落としてダークゼロはもう移動する判断。
North or south, never mind about the evac tower, right? You can
バックで飛んでいく。
now by using it, and it looks like they're gonna go back north. Okay, they were forced north here by Dino.
Yeah, Duplex went down again, and Krusty saying, "I'm not getting you back in again. I did it once."
LG は少し苦しいがこのポジション LG マジで LG リドルみたいな動き方してんな。 NA のリドルが同じ動きなのかな。マジリドルっぽいよね NA の LG 今の動きは弱いけど取っとけばなんとかなるってポジション。ダークゼロこのポジションでファイト。さすがにダークゼロは苦しい。さあこれはさに苦しいでしょう。ダークゼロ車線が通ってさあ落ちきったと。今回はダークゼロ飲ませずと TSM がさあフラットとした。これはジュラシックが取ってますね。 TSM が取りに来るかこの試合。
Are they going to be able to get the res? It looks like they should be. Meanwhile, Oxygen versus LG is going down. It looks like it's a 2 versus 2. Maybe can start to be evened out a little bit because Sweet's just fallen and LG will be wiped. So Oxygen showing why they are a dangerous
さあオキシも LG 落としたと。結構減り早いな。12部隊。
tournaments when we saw some of these guys being able to do their biggest and best impressions
さあアクサ飛んでくる。
on a certain map. Now,
さあオキシポジション苦しいぞ SSG。 でもいい開始。いやーベッチャステム取ってる。オキシジン苦しい。上から TSM か。いや TSM 今回取り来るか。後ろの方にローリングサンダー打って完全に後ろを切る状態。
They have denied that res. Now they can push in. Reed is still on his back.
Yeah, still on his back, but might be getting pulled back up. He's drowning at the moment, but now suddenly he gets a breath of fresh air, but it's still going to be Grief from the other side. SSG trying to push up. You can also see other squads in the area trying to do damage at the same time as the circle is forcing everyone together. SSG not in the best of spots. Optic, however, are in a pretty good spot, and they can potentially pick up some KP here.
Optic in one of those positions that might be endgame. Native eliminated, Temper eliminated, and Ape Gang also gone in the last few seconds. We're down to 8 squads now, and Optic, who didn't have Beacon, now find themselves in a great spot to potentially contest in this endgame. Complexity in the building alongside them still. TSM now make their move though. They control all of the southern side of this zone.
Yeah, TSM hold the southern side, Complexity and Optic in the buildings, Oxygen also kind of fighting their way in. It's going to be tougher for dropping gaming, Oblivion and Elevate.
TSM 現状の有利ポジ。TSM これ取るか。圧倒的有利だぞ。ポイントも伸びそう。めちゃくちゃポイント伸びそうだろ TSM。さあやっぱここは TSM なんかな。
Well, TSM are going to have to find some meds here, and that's exactly what they're going to do. They control the south side of this zone, and let's jump into a listening with TSM to see how they navigate this end zone.
He's in the bin. He's sitting in the bin.
I'm going to have Ben ult again.
Safe there. We can't kill a guy. Okay, anyone have a syringe? Anyone have a syringe?
No.
He's looting the bodies again.
No.
They have a wingman over here. Okay, okay. We gotta push your north. I have
20 heavy.
30, bro.
Oh, no,
I have
no.
30 bullets.
Okay, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine.
We have
I have a head coach on me. Same head coach on me. They have a wingman on this team, by the way. They have a wingman over here on the north side.
They're resing right now. I'm not worried about that. We have to worry about north.
One guy cross here.
Okay, okay.
I think he's
swinging out.
Yeah, we got one.
Yeah, no, dead. 95 flash.
They're going back inside the tunnel. There's nobody going over. They all cross.
さあ圧倒的有利 TSM。
They did res. Make sure they don't mirror us. Yeah, one guy got res. One guy to do over there. I'm holding this north side. I'm holding north side. I have 24 heavy now.
次のアンチがもう近いと思うんで、まあ、右のチーム上がらせたくないですね、こうなると。マガでもちょっとない。
Can we play over here? I'm playing back. They're getting naded on the bin. Look at the bin. Look at the bin. Look at the bin. Free shots. Anchor, Evan. Free kills. Anchor. I'm gonna. Free kills.
Free kill!
TSM in a great position, but as we heard from the listening, Dan, the only issue for
いや、めちゃくちゃフリーキルだ、オキシジン。
A lot of energy ammo though.
オキシジン何のキル欲しい。
No heavy for you. Do have 300 energy if you need that. If you can find an energy weapon as Oxygen still alive, by the way.
いや、めちゃくちゃ苦しい。
The fire and the flames, but they somehow still find themselves in this.
あ、蘇生できないか、ワンチャン。あ、蘇生疲れてんのか。
Lost Aiden, but Aiden Reeds can still make an attempt to try and do something in this game, but there is going to be eyes on them. TSM have seen them. EA also have eyes on them. I think that it might be over soon for Oxygen as the circle starts to close.
TSM 上から俯瞰。
Let me tell you, if everyone else starts fighting, they'll be able to sneak up to that wall line just in front of them as a duo and cause some problems. TSM though, they've got a wingman. And that's certainly going to help things, especially in the hands of Reps, one of the best precision players on M&K you could possibly want in to have the weapon in his hands. There's a sentence there somewhere. As TSM now still just waiting for everyone else to make their move, and you got to say they're in the game-winning spot, Dan. I believe, and with everyone else having to leave and having to fight and move towards them, there's probably a huge amount of KP for them as well.
Yeah, as long as none of the other teams kind of
さあもうフォーカスを向ける。オキシジンが苦しい。まあオキシジンこれはさすがに苦しいか、さすがに。スモーク焚いて右から行くか。さあリード落ちてラストベイン。さあオキシジンが落ちたと。TS なんか上降ってきた。オプティックがさあ上から降ってきて。さあエレベート。いやーでもこれポジション的にどうだ、エレベート返しきれるか。こうなると TSM と上のチームコンプレクシー TSM とコンプレクシーが 1v1 できるんじゃないか。オプティック降ってきたな。オプティック持ちた。さあエレベート起こせそうだね。3チーム TSM は現状一番ヘイト勝ってない。エレベートは上がってこないといけないんで、上がってきたタイミングでさあぶつかる可能性がある。うわ、いやいや EM さあキルも狙う TSM。 フェロバリケード使わしてコンジュアルティメット。これはもう春が前で抑えて、さあ TSM フェロバリケード使って左のチームエレベートを抑えたい。さあどうするか。どっちも戦いたくない。 TSM は先にインペリアルハルが落ちる。戦ってるけどログが流れてる。さあレップス上上がってくる。 TSM レップスがかなり苦しい。さあギリギリアンチが来てるが耐えれるか。さあ TSM が落ちちゃった。さあ最終的にコンプレクシーが上からゆっくり出てきて、コンプレクシーがチャンピオンと。
Complexity play that final circle to perfection. They didn't get kind of excited about potential kills that were happening below them. They stayed and they held their ground and they waited. Even when they saw the knocks happening, even when they saw Optic eliminated, they didn't just dive in. They knew they had to just play it safe, wait for someone else to do the work for you, and then you start to get involved. And I said I was worried about a Horizon Grav lift, and it was exactly that. And it was the wingman that just, it punched hell out of the air. It was pretty disgusting to watch, actually. The wingman just does disgusting things.
Yeah, I mean, you hear it in the comms, right? We learned a lot from the TSM listening. It's like they have wingman. It's like, okay, we cannot cross open ground with them because we know
さあ2戦目のチャンピオンはコンプレクシティと。コンプレクシティが取って、さあオーバースタッツがコンプレクシティが26ポイント、オクシジンが23ポイント、フラット21ポイント、エレブエイト21ポイント、TSM18 ポイント、ダークゼロ15ポイントって感じですね。コンプレクシティ、オクシジン、フラット、エレブエイトが現状いい感じと。次でストップは最後かな。
Yeah, they had a great game. I think everyone in that final circle probably thought like they had a chance. Well, once it became the 3 versus 3 versus 3, Elevate was certainly the team that was struggling a little bit when they had to try and force themselves onto the upper ground, especially when we saw how deal that amount of damage. But Elevate did very well to use the Dark Veil to their advantage to get into a position, and then the Horizon Grav Lift. I mean, it was beautiful to watch, but sadly it wasn't enough to win them the game.
All right, then, Dan, take a break, my friend. Get your breath back, and we'll bring Stella back in to talk about what we just saw, because Storm Point was fun. And I got to say, Kim Chi just sits on the side. You know, his internet comes out and turns it back on. He's like, do you know what, boys? I think we should win some games of Apex. There he goes. Gets the job
I know.
done.
Listen, it's like when you work out, right? Like it's good to rest your muscles for a little bit and then come back stronger. And that's exactly what they did. I mean, I was watching Kimchi play ranked the other day, and he was talking about ALGS, and he was like, you know what? I don't hear people talking enough about complexity. They kind of write us off, so we're bringing our A game, and that's exactly what they did. And I'm so happy to see that. I mean, they were underneath TSM that entire time, took way too much damage, but they were able to control that end game circle so well, which is really hard to do considering all the different elements that can happen in Apex.
Yeah, I mean, those end circles, you're seeing it at the moment, right? It's very rare that you're going to see an end circle now where it's 2 players in a 1v1 playing around knockdown shield.
今のはしょうがなく見えるけど、トニーたちどうなのか。まあでも、個人的に TSM、フェールバリケードやっても多分、まあそうだな。最終局面、あの局面、コンプレクシティが内側から出てこればいいだけだったから、他のチーム、エレブエイトと TSM ぶつからせるように、コンプレクシティは中で耐えて、敵が戦ってくれたら出てくるって感じの動き方してたから、TSM としては少しね、嫌な感じになりましたよね。エレブエイトはもうこの後、カタリストのアルティメットが切れたらもう自分たちのポジションなくなっちゃうから TSM に対してもうアプローチ TSM を早めに倒しちゃおうっていうことで、ね、TSM が少し苦しくなっちゃったっていうのが今のシーンでしたね。なので TSM としてはそのエレブエイトが上がってくるタイミングで落とす、もしくはキルを取っておけばワンチャンあったのかなと思ってたりしてますね。
Can't use my secondary weapon, so he had to swap to the Mozambique and put himself in a position where he felt he could output the most damage. So TSM game-winning spot, but maybe just not the loot to go alongside it to really capitalize in the safest way they could have.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a little surprising to see LG and Dark Zero on the second page, which, I mean, it was a tough opening for them. But look at the top 3 here. Look at that damage. Everything is so close together. Now, we do see Complexity have a little less damage than the other 2 teams, Elevate and TSM, just because they were in circle first, and that's kind of what happens. But they made up for it with placement points.
They certainly did indeed. And a shout out to Elevate. I think their rotate was a lot tougher than Complexity's, and I think they put themselves in a great spot and navigated that end zone well. Shout out as well to Zap. I mean, we saw him go up in the Horizon lift, the Grav lift, and just absolutely ping Imperial How off the top of that building, which kind of swung the whole complexion of that fight back in their favor. And then clutching up in the 1v1 is what you live for if you're an Apex player, and that's exactly what they do in those final moments.
Yeah, absolutely. I also want to point out that E8 did a great job of cleaning up Optic, who also fantastic jump from game number 1. I mean, they really improved their gameplay. It was unfortunate that they did have that fight with Elevate down below, but Elevate also came out on top, and they were doing really well.
Yeah, I think Elevate winning that fight against Optic. Yes, Optic have to make the play. They have to drop, but sometimes it's very tempting to, swing out yourselves. Oxygen was still alive at that point, I think, so you're worried about
現状のポイントとコンプレクシティが26ポイント、オキシジンが23ポイント、フラット、出てきた。地球平面説の画像。21ポイント、エレベートも21ポイント。まあ TSM もダークゼロも大受けって感じないから別に悪くないか。てか NA 減り早いな。NA マジで減り早いわ。
Going to be really interesting to see how match number 3 goes. I mean, we know that these teams are going to be really mad and want to come back and be able to get some of those points back, especially Dark Zero and LG. So I wonder, do you think that they're going to be a little bit more aggressive this time around?
I think it's Dog Zero going to play the Dog Zero way. I think the reason that they didn't have a great game, like by their own standards, that last one is they just didn't read the zone properly. It was a tough zone for everyone to read properly. So Dog Zero will be fine.
Yeah, that end circle was just atrocious, but it's all right. Hopefully with the next game they get a better end circle. But real quick, we're gonna take a break, and when we come back, we'll have the next game ready for you.
Welcome back, you beautiful bunch, and you, Dan. It's good to be back, everybody. A little break, but it gives us a little bit of time to get ready for the next game. The reason I didn't call you beautiful, Dan, is because you're better than that. You're even more beautiful. I don't even have a word. They haven't come up with a word yet for it in the dictionary to define, excuse me, just what a Dan Gaskin is. But game number 3 is just around the corner. Complexity taking game 2, Dan. And I've got to say, Complexity have looked very impressive, not just today in that game, but in the previous week as well.
Yeah, and I think this is exciting times for
さあ第3ゲームストーンポイント ラストストップだね
We want everyone to win, right? We want everyone to have success. Sadly, not everyone can have that success, and there is always going to be those stories of the struggles that some people go through. I'm talking in-game, by the way, and it's great to see Complexity finding a victory there, and hopefully they can use this now to propel themselves even more in this match week, because it's all well and good getting one, but you need to be consistent to continue being at the top of the leaderboards.
You do indeed. Let's see if consistency is going to be the name of the game for the likes of Flat and Complexity, the winners of game 1 and 2. A little bit of a quiet start for Dark Zero. I think that zone was a little bit rough for them. I think it was a little bit rough for a lot of people, apart from Complexity, to be completely honest with you. So we're going to have to see how things change. But just want to highlight Oxygen, by the way. A much better start to the day after the first 2 games here on Storm Point.
Yeah, and I will give them credit for their resilience in that previous game as well. They were being targeted by what felt like the entire lobby, and they were able to still squeeze themselves into the latter stages as we're back to the wall, and it's round 3, 1-1 fight.
Here we go.
さあフェイズとショートファイト
Let's see what goes down. FaZe listening is ready. Do you know what? Let's jump in. Let's see what the comms are like.
We should swing out. Swing out, queuing up.
まあでもフナティックとかとしてはこういったチームは来てほしくないよね本番で来る可能性があるからテンパーとフェイズが来なければフナティックは自分たちのランドマークがある可能性が高いからこのチームが落ちてほしいなよね
FaZe fatality. Ball again, Dan.
Always a 50-50 with those listenings. Sad. We didn't get the right one, but you know that's just how the cookie crumbles. We go back, though, to Cenote Cave, where we had the previous 50-50 that was happening. Skirt against Cream, and Cream are 2-0 up in this
さあ
contest.
初動こっちも2連敗という
We've got Horizon back
SKRT
in the fray. We also have Bloodhound, too.
All right, you gonna do the boxing intro for this one as well, and I'll do the bell.
No, you're not allowed to do that one. Yeah, no, we don't even need to. Honestly,
you have to pay someone to do that. Don't do that.
I think literally you do. I don't even know if they're gonna fight yet. It looks like they are far enough away. But I said that last time, and then
そして南のコースタルキャンプ
Whilst they think about fighting, we're going dead south. So we're going down towards coastal. DNO Gaming. will be
南
okay.
ア
I'm
ンチです
looking at Ring
ね
Consoles. Flat had one at Pylon. Ape had one as well.
Oxygen got one.
Native. Oxygen are going to be in a good position to rotate. TSM have got one to work with as well, but they'll probably be moving in late. SSG have one over towards Devastated Coast and Launchpad. But finally, it looks like these two are going to be fighting. Never mind.
Let's get ready to Apex.
Yeah, there we go.
Albrelletti's gone down first again. Very unfortunate for him in this contest. There's
さあ
three
ハルブラリー
games
落とし
in a
た
row, which has unfortunately gone down. The change of legend isn't going to help, and Scurry might have to try and hit a glorious headshot to even the numbers for them with that.
いや上がってくるところをしっかり見てる
Instead, he'll hit
キュ
some
リー
glorious shots with an R9.
Yeah, that works. That certainly evens
これチャンスじゃないか
the odds a little bit, and
結構チャンスだ
Albrelletti has got back on his feet, so this is the best
いやでも
chance
味方こっちゃった
Skirt had, but back in another 2 versus 3. Does Albrelletti have the surprise factor? He's got Horizon, so he is able to
ダメージはいいが
at least, so they can have high ground to work with. But are they going to be able to hold
これ
it
起こすしかないけど起こすタイミングで
Certainly, once you hear that sound cue, you've got to
めちゃくちゃいいグレ
But are they going to be quick enough?
いやホライゾン積んでないか相手
Pretty smart, trying to force someone up now.
ホライゾン積んでないっぽいな
Output a little bit of damage themselves. Albrelletti looking to
ホライゾン積んでないですねレブだねレブ版がブラハだね
This one isn't done yet, and Albrelletti
こうなるとホライゾン積んでる SKRT が有利かいやでもレブなんとこれキモすぎる この上がってくるのキモすぎるめちゃくちゃキモいこのピーク 同じとこからずっと上がってくる
They looked at it and said, nah, don't care. And they kept going. They're onto barometer and they will continue on their rotation. Not worth taking the time here to get involved. The KP isn't going to be enough to stop them. Whilst this one is still elongated
アルブラ降りた
as they just want to try
もう取りに
and
行
put
く
this blue armor to their advantage.
Albrelletti's going to drop and he's going to have a flank here. Gets good damage down, but Awakening goes down. Scurry's going to even it up.
返すが返される
Gonna be able to win this one. It's all up to Scurry now. He
スキュリ
has
ー
the Sentinel, the
武器ないか
shot.
126
Goes down. 126 on your back, son. Scurry's got a chance to do something magical here. Can he hit the shot? There's an heirloom. There's a chunk
Knockdown.
of flesh, but he's
ない
time and Skirt.
あーうわめちゃくちゃローじゃん
It's a valiant effort, has to be said.
めちゃくちゃローワンショットやったね
Remember, we learned from EMEA, even if you go back to back to back games with 0 points, you still have a chance when you move over to a different map where potentially you won't be contested. So we'll still keep an eye out for Skirt, and maybe they can do what we saw earlier from Vamo Korea as they were able to make the comeback of all comebacks.
I'm pleased that you remember what they're called again.
I didn't say Vamos this time.
No. Blame Mikel Arteta for that one. Oxygen Esports, they do have that ring console, like we mentioned, dropping over at Barometer. Old Faithful, old POI, and old Home, and what a difference it makes, right, in a game day. They look so much more confident. They've got into a great spot here as well, down at Coastal Camp. And I swear we've seen this zone about 1,000 times in scrims, by the way, during the week.
Yeah, we've seen this often, so players are going to be very ready. Yeah, they should know where to be going, where to be moving, and I think that is evident from the map overhead of how much congestion there is just north of Coastal Camp and the positions that teams are going to find themselves in.
Dark Zero making their rotate as well. Monsoon with his old faithful, the Sentinel. He's going to hit this, I bet you any money. Told you.
That's why I didn't take it.
Yeah, smart. See, you know better.
Yep.
Don't gamble, everyone.
So Complexity are in a fine position at the moment, but they are taking up a lot of space, which does leave room for teams to potentially surprise them from behind. Dark Zero are still going to be making their move in. They're coming from the far south, by the way, and they're just going to be sneaking into this zone, potentially unaware to all those teams that have already found themselves on the southern tip. And you can see on this map overhead, there's a lot of them, right? There's a lot of teams that are in the south side over towards Coastal Camp or just slightly north of it. And Dark Zero are just going to squeeze themselves in behind everyone and try and
南へ
find
と寄
somewhere
っ
to
てますね、がっつり。ダークゼロはいつもノーセプションとか取るポジション、南のポジション取ってるね。
You see their rotate, they've gone through Stormcatcher, they've had craft in there, they're now going over to Launchpad, where I'm pretty sure there's some crafting available as well. So their armors are going to be leveled up and they're going to have lots of meds to play with because they know this is going to be a really rough rotate for them. But one thing I will say, with the changes to Storm Point on these southern zones, I would say this time last year on Storm Point, I'm like, you ain't got a chance of winning this game if you're coming from the north side with so much traffic. But Coastal Camp, Echo HQ, they have a lot more playable areas than previous POIs did. So there is ways to force your way in from the north and maybe use an evac tower late that there wasn't previously, and you can put yourself in a position to at least be involved in that conversation.
Yeah, you've got to be involved with the conversation. If you're a team who has goals of being a LAN team or at least a champion, because everyone wants to be a winner, then you've got to be putting yourselves in the conversation game after game after game to get those reps in, to make sure that you can see those end games coming through. It's all well and good doing it in scrims, but competitive
かなり南だね。どうなるかね。
scrim lobbies. As you can just look at the amount of teams on that southern side, it is going to be, it's going to be
今のファイト見ると KR のファイトスピードが異次元に見える。KR めちゃくちゃ速いからな。まあもう移動するために邪魔になるんだったらもう早めにパッてやっちゃうっていうのがあるよね。
I wonder if LG are just trying to play for third zone info here over at Echo HQ. They were there for quite some time, maybe watching their back, and maybe they've stopped watching their back at just the wrong time, because TSM are now making their move in behind where LG were, and they land safely without taking any damage. Now they can look to posture up and look to do a little bit of damage themselves. Imperial Howl doesn't have a sight on the Hemlock, but the Hemlock itself is enough to scare off many teams.
Yeah, just terrifying. I mean, you don't really want to go up against it in a 1v1. I mean, LG versus TSM, it's a fight that I would watch day after day, time after time. But it doesn't look like it's going to happen. A fight that is happening, though. Elevate versus Native. Again, these two have been scrapping for the last 3 matches on Storm Point because they share such similar rotations and similar paths. But Native, they have the better of them right now.
They do. Shubi going down, and that's going to turn the numbers in their favor at least. They rotate in to take the bottom side of this building. They have a white armor swap at the bottom of it as well, but they want more than this. 105 is going to be pretty good.
ネイティブが攻めていくと、LV8、これ落ちちゃうと少しポイント的に嫌か？ザップが苦しい。すごいいいポジ。これバレないんじゃないか、ワンチャン。
But Native, it doesn't look like they're going to be too desperate to look for that final player. Instead, it's about looting up. They hold the northern side.
この配布気づかなそう。昨日の解説お疲れ様でした。ミラー配信に助かります。ありがとうございます。お疲れ様でした。いや、いい位置。
Really see those struggles, so you need to have a game plan. I mean, evac towers, we have seen zones like this where people just evac tower in and find playable space. But because of the amount of ring consoles that were available to the southern teams here, I don't think that's going to be as easy as perhaps it has been in the past.
さあ LG ちょっとポイントが伸び悩んでると8ポイント。
Trying to land some shots, and now LG find themselves in a position where it's about survival instead of rotating. They are going to be safe for quite some time, but maybe this position isn't one that they feel is comfortable to hold with lines of sight that are going to deny teams putting damage onto them consistently.
さあ LG どうやって移動するか。さあ LG ちょっとポジションが苦しい。めちゃくちゃ挟まれてる。さあ行くとこないぞ。さあ LG ちょっと移動が厳しかった。さあもうこれは配慮するしかないか。さあベインも狙ってくる。いやダークゼロも狙ってる。なんだこの2人で。2人でダブルハイド。
Dog Zero, they're involved in this end zone though, and they are looking for points at the moment. They've had a couple of quiet games. Zero gets good damage, but takes himself, and that's the danger of popping up and trying.
LG 落ちそうですね。こうなると。ダークゼロもキルポイント狙ってめちゃくちゃアプローチするな。
find out about by only being in this position, Dan.
Yes, indeed. But Circle is going to keep pulling south, by the way, as expected. Anyone who was hoping for maybe a northern shift to try and get out of what is going to be an incredible endgame, the amount of teams that are here are going to be bitterly disappointed at the obvious Circle pull. So Dark Zero, you know, they're in a pretty good spot here, actually. They've got some high ground to work with, plenty of cover if they want to use it. They just need to be worried about the northern teams arriving and potentially desperating a push onto them.
I mean, one thing they did really well, Dark Zero, was force LG away and into all of the crossfire that you saw from other teams. And now they've claimed all this space themselves. It's one thing that I love that Dark Zero do. They're never afraid to like fully send two players in to try and get a knock just to force teams away.
めちゃくちゃいいチルな今回。チャンピオン取れそうですね。あ、バレた。ザップ。さすがに取られると。
Yeah, they waited. They were around. They weren't going to allow any sort of banners to be retrieved. They wanted to make sure they got that
仕事中に見てる。仕事中にラジオ感覚で聞けばいいからね。ラジオ感覚でお伝えします。俺も朝早く起きちゃってるからちょっと眠くて声が出ませんけど。声出ませんが、まあ今日は実況というわけじゃなく、ただ単に観戦するというのんびり観戦枠でございます。これ終わったら寝るんだ、僕は。眠すぎる。昼から大学の定期で勉強しながら行ってます。みんななんか勉強とか頑張ってますね。偉い。偉いですね。
Yeah, it's just absolutely jam-packed. No room to even think, let alone breathe at this point for some of these squads. And it is going to come down to LGLs to kind of make those quick decisions, but also everyone to think for themselves.
6時？じゃあ7時か。7時だったから寝た時間1時間なんだな。全然なかった。さあ、挟めのテッパー。GKS が攻めてるプッシュですね。ロボティックも入ってるか？さあ、このちょっとザ・パイロンがかなりのパワーで集まってる。TSM は6上手で、レップスが1キル獲得してますね。ああ、TSM 奥側から見てますね。さあ、TSM これ、ギョフれるチャンスじゃないか？ギョフチャンス来た。まあ中でやってくれるんだったら最後ギョフってもいいという状況。めちゃくちゃやってるぞ。TSM がめちゃくちゃキルスティールしてる。美味しい。
pick up the scraps here and get any loot that they want as teams start to try and escape, or at least the last remaining players do. TSM looking towards it. Looks like Oblivion are not going to be able to escape. No, 13
さあ TSM ロックさえできればかなりキルポイント伸びそうだが、移動の方を選択するかな、これは。移動かな。
TSM realize this is a KP heavy game for them, and placement is going to be something they're going to have to maybe think as a secondary play. The amount of teams that are already located in and around where this zone is going to be ending oxygen, by the way, just to give you an idea of who is in a great position for the end game. They are that team.
日韓で予想よりうまくいってるチームとうまくいってないチームといましたが、予想よりうまくいってるチームは、予想よりうまくいってるチームで言ったらディドールとかディドールじゃなくて瀬戸内スパークか。瀬戸内スパークとかそういったところは結構予想外やったよね。まあそのゲーバー標的にはうまくいってないところで言ったらノーセプションとかもあるかないけど、ノーセプちょっと伸び悩んでるよね。めちゃくちゃ悪いわけじゃないけどめっちゃ伸び悩んでる。なんかめっちゃ悪いわけじゃないけど最高にいいわけでもないっていう、そんな感じかな。瀬戸内スパークはやっぱ下馬評的にはねトップに入ってきてるわけじゃないからちょっと意外ですよね。さあオプティックとネイティブ、オプティックを落ちてしまった1枚。これでも内側のチームがめちゃくちゃキルポイントチャンスないか？打ち放題だよ。 さあでもついてくるネイティブ。内側からのダークゼロがやっぱり狙ってますね。ダークゼロも狙ってるが、ダークゼロどこにいるんだ。ダークゼロそこにいるのか。ダークゼロ取りに来た。そこにいたのか。なんか後ろに2部隊いるっていうことを確認してから一旦引いたって感じじゃないですかね。偉いなダークゼロ。それでやり合わせて自分たちは後から入っていくっていうキルを漁夫ができる立ち位置へと戻っていきましたね。ダークゼロ偉いですね。挟まれないように先に抜けていくという。私はパルブびっくりした。パルブはどっちの意味でびっくりしたんだ。いいという意味なんか悪いという意味か。ブラックゼロちょっと削られてますね。さあ EC でも落ちてる2枚。さあサイグズとジェンマーテン最強パッド2人。さあもうこれ 3-1 しかもクレーバーゼロ持ってる。さあキルポイントに行きたいっすね。いやでもこれスパイクトリップうざすぎる。さあなんとかダークゼロこれチャンピオンコースか。パルブのヒーローキャッスルウォールよかったなマジで。マジ興奮したわ。ヒーローキャッスルウォールたまらずニコニコしちゃったわ。TSM ダークゼロとファイトですか。いや上ですね。 TSM 上のポジション取る。このゲームはダークゼロとゼロと春の2チーム用に作られてるのか。いやーこれはちょっと苦しい。 TSM も残り1枚バン。の下にいる。まだ LG 残ってる。これもしかして。いやー下からピーク。 TSM が全滅。いや LG は落ちてますかね。この真下。さあダークゼロ最後上がってこればいいという状況。ダークゼロチャンピオンかこれ。So many squads. This is the most squads we've had in a final circle so far today. 9 squads remain. It's going to be 8 very shortly though as DNO and Dark Zero start to pressure some of those squads who have arrived late. Monsoon still alive for Complexity as a solo. Maybe we'll get spotted out soon. 各チーム次のポジションがないからどんどんキルを狙ってムーブしてますね。いいね。キル狙ってますね。ガンガンキル狙ってる。ガンガンキル狙ってるね。すごいよ。Squads now remaining. DNO are going to be in a good position to just wait out this Ultima coming down from the sky from the Bangalore. The Rolling Thunder not going to be doing anything here as Oxygen continue to just command space in and around the end game here. It's an opportunity we need to take. Oxygen listening is available. Let's jump in. Oxygen の VC。まあ一番ちょっとした近いが上の立ち位置なんで。ヘイトの分散しなきゃいけない。いやーでもいい壁になってる。これ敵の壁が逆に自分たちを救うような形。いや上のチームと怖いな。 SSG とかディノがちょっと降りてくる可能性があるから上のチームをどうにか抑えないといけない。オキシジンGKS 落として上のチームどうにか取りたいね。オキシジンは上のチーム取りたい。ああ落ちちゃったな。上のチーム取り切ってもいいな。もう前来たらああそうだよね。もうキルを取りに行くと でもこれがなったらもうダークゼロ、あれダークゼロどこ行った？まだ下いる？あれダークゼロ消えてる。あれダークゼロ死んだ？オクシジンこれ上がってきこれないから、アンチが弱った。UI 遅っUI 遅かったわ。上制したオクシジンが取ったと。あれダークゼロいつの間に死んだんだ
？In the end, Dark Zero can't get up to them quick enough. They didn't have the ability to get up to them either. So Oxygen were able to kind of position themselves and take fights elsewhere. And they would have been delighted to then see SSG down on the low ground without the ability to take that fight either. But SSG also with a second place, which I'm sure they'll be very happy with.
Yeah, I think SSG
ダークゼロついさっき逆サイドでファイトしてた。そうなんだ。
They don't know the other team's numbers in the lobby. They're like, we have an opportunity to get an extra KP, guarantee ourselves.
今日はプロリーグを変える力があると思いますか？まあ変える力はあるとは思うけどね。メタとしてはあるかもしれないね。メタを今の片ホライゾン、片ホラバンガーとかそういった構成のまあなんか新しく入ってくる要素ではあるかも。コンジットちょっと OP すぎる感じもするがどうなんでしょうね。ちょっと OP 感俺は否めないけど、まだバンガがね強すぎんだよな。バンガがうんちすぎる。それにつきますね本当に。さあオキシジンが抜けましたね。42ポイント、コンプレクシー30ポイント、ダークゼロ27ポイント、 SSG27 ポイント、フラット25ポイント、 TSM23 ポイント。ああまあダークゼロ TSM そんなに悪くないですね。全然悪くない。
Yeah, Dark Zero just always find a way to guarantee points, right? It's very rare you'll see a Dark Zero
続きましてワールドエッジ。
something like that. They're always going to win a team fight or two on their way forward.
ワールドエッジでね。
SSG have looked pretty impressive so far today as well, like you rightly pointed out. TSM again involved, I would say, towards the end game, but a very tough rotate for them.
でもバンガいないとキーマーク少ないですか？そんな昔から変わってない。バンがいたからってキーマーが別に強くなるわけじゃないからな。それでやっと対等だから。別にバンガがいたからってキーマーが強くなるわけじゃない。それでやっと対等。そんな感じですよ。対等って目があって対等だからな。バンガってアサルトなった以外なんかバフ入ったっけ？昔スタンの秒数が長くなった。それがバフとしてあったかな。5秒ぐらいだったかな。スタンの時間が違った気がする。初期と。
That zone pull is kind of, I think, indicative of what we've seen a lot this season, right? It's the surprise factor. Everyone's like, oh, we've played this in scrims. This is where this goes. And then it's like, Pro League's a little bit different. And we'll have to see if that is going to continue as we head back to World's Edge. But we'll bring Stella back into the conversation as we gives ourselves a little bit of time to just recover from what we've seen. And Stella, how are you feeling?
I'm good. It has been a great day of Apex matches. I mean, it has been really good to see these teams that we did speak about needing to step up their game actually step up their game.
これでストーンポイントが終わったと。残りはワールドエッジですね。ズエッジ参戦。TSM ワールドエッジ少し不調だからどうなんですかね。
That makes fights a lot easier. And I want to say Oxygen did a great job of just communicating. Their comms were extremely clear and even calm when I
初期から一番変わってないキャラクターではある。そうだね。初期から比べると一番変わってないかもしれないね。まあそもそも根本的な調整はされてないからね、バンガの。バンガのそもそものコース、そもそものあれはなってないからね。
lower trend of the overall standings. What can we do in World's Edge to really change?
2022年春はバンガ使うとミスピック疑われたのに出世したな。バンガロール君はね出世しましたよ。彼、彼女か。
Absolutely. I think FaZe is probably one of those teams that is victim to that.
かなり出世しましたから
It's a
ね
little bit better for them because they've lost 2 out of 3 of their contests today, and it is a rough mental image going forward for them, I'm sure. But to help us break things down and look at what teams can be doing better, we have a very special guest, Church, visiting us, and we are going to be able to get an interview with her. Hello.
Hello. It's a pleasure to be back.
Yes. So now it is my understanding that you're the first Black female caster for the North American Challengers circuit. Is this right?
Yes, that is.
That's amazing. I feel like Apex is such a good
アレルさんはもし日本で世界大会決定したらどんなコスプレ開発しますか？どんなコスプレって開発する前提かよ。まずそもそも開発する前提なのかよ。
for ALGS. So I'm really happy to be speaking with you today.
That's incredible. Yes. The title of being the first of hopefully many to come is definitely something that I pride myself in, and also always keep in consideration that it's not just about me. It goes further than that. It goes down to the nitty-gritty of there needs to be more. And I think that Apex does a phenomenal job of showcasing diversity throughout, whether it be the game or their talent.
I want to jump in here and just ask a quick question before we start looking at the zones and everything that you've been watching today, Church. And I wanted to get who you had your eyes on before we saw the games today, because I know it would be very easy for you to say
EMEA
that
の
three teams
チームエンパイアがガンガン使ってて意外な構成って言われてたのに、ああ確かにそういえばエンパイアバンガ使ったっけ昔。 まああの頃マジでバンガの強みが分かんなかったからな。まだメタが変わったってのあるよな。メタがマジで変わったよな。でもバンガメタは逆に日本から海外に普及してったんじゃないか？どちらかというと。
That is my thought.
Puppy into the room.
Okay, we're getting a 2 for 1 today.
The interview just
猫がい
got
る。
even better. I mean, perfect. I was going to say.
で多分 NA よりか多分日本の方が先に使ってたようなイメージあるけどな。どうだったっけ？バンガ構成多分逆に世界大会ではバンガ日本の方が多かった気がするけどな。
For a curveball there, I did anticipate them playing better today in this series against Cream. However, I think some of their choices have been a little bit questionable, and I'm hoping to see them do a little bit better in performance-wise going towards World's Edge.
Yeah, well said. Now, you did such a great job of this in EMEA, so we're going to have you do this again. Can you break down the action in the final circles of the last 3 games we just did?
It would be my absolute pleasure. So going into match 1, we did have a devastated coast end zone. It was on the outskirts, however, we did have teams like Oxygen, Dark Zero, SSG, and GGAK Flat.
これは1試合目かな？
Occupying space. Dark Zero did a phenomenal job of taking up space on the bridge, but I don't know if they really considered how much of a threat SSG was.
支部が競技に参加した時は当選した時散々言われたイメージ。 まあ、てかそもそも他のキャラクターが強かったからな。バルとかも強かったしな。バルがめちゃくちゃ強かった時期もあったし。まああとカタリストっていうキャラクターが出てからじゃないか。カタリストっていうキャラクターができてからの移動っていう要素がカタリストの壁っていう要素とバンガのスモークで2個は移動できるから、それがやっぱインチキだよな。バンガだけだと多分そんなに移動できないんだよ。カタリストとバンガ良くないんだよな。バンガで移動できるキャパが増えすぎてる。それが良くないよね。 移動できるのを増やしすぎですよ。
TSM did a phenomenal job of clearing out Jurassic, taking out teams in their way such as Flat, and taking space on the height. PAL here does take a different perspective, which I really enjoyed. However, it seems that it did end up biting them later on.
俺のイメージだけどね、相方が出てきてから躍進って感じだと思う。俺は。
hit his shots. I mean, you can't deny a great wingman. However, I know
これやばいな。あ、これさ、エレブ8これさ、 これ3月ウィングマン全部当たってんのこれ。そういうこと？今春落ちたのこれ全部ウィングマンでさ、3発ヘッドじゃね3発ヘッドっていうかなんかめちゃくちゃダメージもらったんやか。3発で死んでたよな。このあれ外役だろリフトで浮いてウィングマン腰打ちパンパンパンってやったら頭入ったって感じ。今のクソすぎだろ。歯めっちゃ切れてた。さすがに切れるだろあれ。あれえぐいな。てかホラー級やめんか。ホラー級マジおもんねえ。ホラー級さ消そう。ホラー級でさ弾撃てなくしようぜ。ホラー級マジおもんない。飛びながら撃つの。こっち下側当てれないのにさ上側のチーム当ててこれるってインチキだね正直。ナーフされても全然変わってねえよあれ。弾撃てるのが悪いわ。ホライゾン。
Yeah, that last one is such an unfortunate positioning, but thank you so much for breaking down the action. You are a god, you are amazing. Now we're going to look at the results here. And is this kind of what you expected to come out of today?
I have to say, LG's performance definitely was not what I had
大会
expected.
スモークまみれで何が起きてるか分からない時あるからあんまり流行ってほしくなかった。まあ本当にあれだよね。スモークもあるしカタリストの壁もあるしマジで見づらい。観戦視点からするとマジで見づらくなっちゃってるよね環境。
Yeah, absolutely. I do. Okay, so with these end circles that you were describing for us, I do kind of want to talk about legend pick rates for North America. I think it's really interesting because these end circles get so chaotic, and we did see reps unable to move forward because of the conduit ult that was just laying there. So do you think in season 20 that we're going to see a change?
何このサブコンテンツいつ始まるの？
A nice little meta change up for the
いつ始まるんですか？これサブコンテンツ長すぎん
？One hope that I definitely have for season 20 going forward is a reason for people to choose a different legend, a reason for the meta to consistently adapt to the gameplay, a reason for there not to be a hard stuck meta, a hard reason of why you have to pick so and so. You have other options now, more dynamic choices and different compositions coming from all different angles. I'm really hopeful that in season 20 we have something that changes it up a bit.
Yeah, I want to see more ballistic. I want to see Mirage. Let's go. Well, thank you so much for speaking with us, Church. Yeah. Oh, don't
Thank you
get
so much for
Onset started about that. All right, bye.
Listen, Onset, I got you. Take it easy.
Pathfinder needs leg cannons. That's all I'm saying. The hashtag is out there. It's worldwide.
I know, and I'm trying not to make that hashtag a thing because that is
アル
terrifying.
デさんは次どういうキャラ来てほしいですか？どういうキャラ？
Don't get too unhinged without me.
コントローラーキャラクター少ねえからコントローラーキャラクター増やしたらいいんじゃねえか？あんまりなんかいいやん思いつかねえけどもちろん。今カタリスト、ランパ、カタランパ、ワットソン、コースティック4キャラ？4キャラか？ちょっとなんか選択肢が狭いよね。壁系の。コントロール系のなんかキャラクターがあと1個ぐらい増えたら面白くなりそうだけどね。
Go back and watch the EMEA broadcast. Let's talk about World's Edge though, Dan. Let's turn our attention away from nonsense and my brain and how it works because it's a terrifying place. Back to Apex Legends that we're seeing right now because it's still very much an open lobby, I would say. Some of the big hitters haven't had some zones that have kind of gone their way, I would say, and it's been more of a rise of to the top of some of the teams who were hoping and expecting might show a bit of form this week.
Yeah, but well, they were words. When you get over to World's Edge,
ニューキャッスルもコントローラーでいい気がする。確かにニューキャもコントローラーでまあいいかな。まあどっちでもいい。ジブコントローラーにするか。ジブコン。
teams that have been fantastic at World's Edge. Dark Zero, the best World's Edge team that we have in North America based on the amount of points they've accumulated. LG as well, the third best team that we have in North America. And Complexity actually
まだ確定じゃないけど、次のアップデートで、なんかホライゾンがうんちみたいな感じになってるんだよね。ディーク。まあでもディークだからな、わかんねえんだよな、それディークの情報。前ディーク情報来てからそれ嘘のだったからな。多分俺の予想ね、そんなぶっ壊れキャラならないと思うんだけどな。なんかグラビティリフト2個持ってるとかなんか意味わかんない性能してたらもう終わりやん。そもそも。まあ多分リークするやつらのために嘘情報流してる説はありそうだけどな。前なんかそんなことあったんだよな。嘘情報流して情報を困惑させるみたいな。まだ公式が出ないと分かんないですからね。まあシーズン20何かしらの変化あると思うけどね。大きな PS5 の 120fps 開放あったりとかいろいろとね、なんか変わりそうな感じがするから apexLegends が始まっちゃうかもしれないですね。シーズン20で衰退に向かうかどうなるかはシーズン20で決まります。
Well, the good news is FaZe aren't contested at Geyser. I remember last time we saw A and B, they were contested on both, and they really weren't having a great time. But now they at least have Geyser to themselves, or so we think. I guess we will be confirming that as we get a little bit further into this game, and once we see the players dropping out of said dropship. But I'm excited to see whether, anyone is going to surprise us. Is anyone going to show up? For example, E8 were able to pick up a top 3 last time on World's Edge, even though we've not really seen them been able to elevate themselves into a top position on Stormpoint.
Well, let's see how this game goes. We're in Legend Select now. We're going to have to see how the comps change up a little bit as well. I'm expecting...
まあでもそのパークシステムできた場合、味ムーブのチームかなり苦しくなるんじゃないか。だってそもそもさ、次からクラフト消えるんだったらクラフト消える分これさ、あれやばいんじゃね。クラフト消えたらさ、恥ムーブチーム一気に悪くね。これからめっちゃムーブ変わるくね。フラティック大丈夫か。そうなるとフラティックとか他のチーム大丈夫なんか。一気に環境変わっちゃうけど、そう思えばクラフトしてたチームが一気に軒並みクラフトできなくなっちゃうからね。そういえばフェンネルもきついね。確かにキノトロープもアーマー進化までもキノトロープはあんまクラフトしないか。そんなにクラフトが消える場合だったらやばいよね。わかんないけどクラフトが1回しか使えないのかなんとか、まだ本当の情報が出ないとわかんないですね。何かまあそれは情報公開待ちましょう。いつ出るんかな公式情報。そうなんだよな。アーマーサがもしなんだろう、アーマーサがない世界やっちゃうとランドマークゲーになっちゃうからな。いかにランドマークがいいかというそういったゲーム始まっちゃうな。真ん中に近いゲームの方がいいからな。ラバサイフォン一番最強やん。もう10パーティーがラバサイフォン来るんじゃねえか。さあ出たよ。また出たよ。ワールドエッジ北アンチばっか。ワールドエッジ北ばっかというね。この南アンチがほぼありません。ワールドエッジは。
I'm pretty sure that they will play the northern side of this just because of how the zone is anyway. So they should be in a good position for a endgame regardless of the fact they don't have a ring console.
Yeah, it is one of those circles where I think you can kind of guess it's going to be pulling north, but SSG are in the same position. SSG only have a survey beacon from what I can see, no ring console, so they're going to have to kind of play the guessing game as well. Tempo were able to get ring console information, so they're moving. The same can be said for Native.
一番奥はコンプレクシー早っ。コンプレクシー早いっすね。もう奥まで来てる。
FaZe have a ring console down towards Geyser, so they're going to be able to move
やっぱ最近のトレンドはハボックと。 最近トレンドっすよね、ハボック。ハボック、ボルト、カー、99って感じで、サイドエッポンがもうそれ決まってるね。
I feel that they're going to have to get some damage done if they want to have any kind of success in this game, unless the composition is going to allow them to barricade themselves inside of a building for the long game. Elsewhere, you can see that Oblivion had a little bit of maybe an issue for a few seconds here.
マッチ4のピックレートはバンガロール 95%、 ローバも結構いるぞ。ローバ3チームいる。ローバ3、ブルハ4、ローバ3いるよ、このマッチ。ローバが埋めた。
95% pick rate, by the way, for Bangalore. 19 of our teams have Bangalore in this lobby. Very much,
because they're the chads of the lobby. That's
very much.
オキシジンは違うね。で、ローバのアルティベーターね。壁の人かな。
Three people playing Loba, potentially for the support abilities. Of course, you can craft banner with Loba, or anyone from the team can craft banner if you have a Loba, but also the ability to get that black market down, get any extra loot in the late game or in the early game, whenever you want to use it.
ダークゼロは
So, interesting to see which Loba teams we have, and maybe we'll see them as we go through. Is Dark Zero going to be
スカイ
making
フ
their
ッ
way
ク
to
側
the
なんで、
northern
スカイ
side
フッ
from
ク側から
Skyhook, and they're going to be going
アプ
through
ロ
a
ーチと。
tunnel. They could potentially be the first
ダー
team
ク
that
ゼロ
could
は
flex
ブラ
team
ハ、バンガロール、コンジット。
So going to be able to hit the support bin as well to get a little bit more out of it, and I'll tell you what, that is always a good thing to find. The 2 to 4 for that 30-30 repeaters just gives you maximum range on that weapon to chip away at some shields and make sure that you're in a position to
さあ
level
テン
the
パ
evos
ーちょ
up, as we
っ
all know
と
is
きつい
the game for a
ね
lot。of these squads, especially if they can get
2人でこのポジション。 SSG はクリマタイザー読めてないけど、クリマタイザーに集まってきてるから大体ここら辺だろうってことでね、予測できてるか。 LG ちょっとツイートがやられた。ちょっと遅れてるね。いやでも味方がちゃんとカバーしてくれた。さあこれはなんとかして通りそうか。片壁も使ってるし、まあ進行ないですね。ちょっと危なかったね LG。 事故りそうだった。
Even if you don't have a ring console, I think this circle is one of the more predictable ones with it holding the northern tip as much as it does. So a lot of teams have moved as quickly as they can just to try and get a building. We saw in the match 3 what we had like 18 teams left going into zone 3, so people are playing pretty slow. People are playing a little bit more zone heavy in this lobby at the moment. That could change in World's Edge, but typically World's Edge is usually more zone heavy than Storm Point at times. So maybe we'll even see more when it comes down to it. But 19 squads at the moment. Team Cream, the only team that's been eliminated.
Yeah, FaZe are down to just 2 as well. And Snipe Down and Pandas having to back right up there as Zero Tricky will be going down. Interesting to see what their next play is going to be. I'm trying to look around and see if there is any way that they might be able to craft a banner to get Zero Tricky back in. But I've got to be honest with you, it doesn't really look like there's many options for them. So if they do want to do this, they're going to have to go a long way out of zone to try and get their teammate back into this game. Team Skirt are going to be able to play some apexlegends, by the way, which is good news for them. Albrelli is going to be moving off the Revenant onto the horizon by the looks of things. So we were fed false information, everybody. We have to apologize publicly for that.
ビスケルティ0ポイント。まあストーンポイントね、初動ファイト参戦やったからね。こっから伸ばしていかないといけないって。まあ初動ファイトってマジで不毛だよな、こう思うと。
on World's Edge. So both teams who have been struggling a little bit in their contests are now going to have the opportunity to play some Apex Legends. I mean, yeah, okay, FaZe have lost one, but they still might be able to be getting themselves into the later game, and potentially they can get that banner back. We'll have to see. All right,
ダークゼロ、あれダークゼロがいつの間にか上いる。
who don't have ring console information are about to get it, and then they can start to make their moves if
ど
they
こ行ったん
would
だ。
like.
そしてダークゼロよる。あれどこ行ったんだあれ。誰がいたっけさっき。あれ落ちた。さっきコンプレクシーいたな。コンプレクシー岩に移動してんな。コンプレクシーどうしたんだ。かけてんのか。
Looking at who is in a good position, you might notice right at the northern side of the zone is going to be Dark Zero. We saw their rotate a little bit earlier on. Complexity, no surprise to see they're in a pretty good spot as well. As TSM decide it's time for us to try and take a little bit of space on the map and get across it towards where this zone is going to be. Evac Tower goes down. They want to try and play for the high ground. In and around.
届かなそうだけどな。届くんかこれ。
Epicenter for now, but
エピセンター上へと行くが届かないと。
distance on this travel through the skies before they do try and do anything. I was interested to see if they were actually going to go into Monument and hit the
epicenter は TSM と
information, but I think from where they can see at the moment,
全員バラバラに上がっていく。
where they believe it's going to be going is for them it's not about a priority spot at this point down. I think it's just about fighting their way in.
Yeah, something that TSM do very well and they're very successful at doing and have done today as well. In 6th place at the moment, we saw a few north to south rotates on Storm Point where it was very similar, where they had to move in late, adapt to wherever that zone was pulling, and it did work.
なんだこの構成。
Our first caustic of the lobby.
なんだこの構成。
As well, we saw one caustic and it was very successful as well. So we'll have to see whether DNO
バルガスローバ。
Shout out to Cybercats.
とんでもない構成がいるな。
Over in EMEA, who did do some good work today with caustic in their composition, proved that it is still viable. Oblivion now playing the bridge position here just to the south of Climatizer. FaZe, I believe, have managed to get back to a full 3 here, so they collected that banner and they were able to get a respawn against their tricky back end.
仮想時復権か
Are going to be maybe in a position where they might be looking at Oblivion in quite some time. DNO Gaming is still continuing their rotation as well as we take our attention back towards the height which is surrounding Epicenter for now. You can see the temper on that bridge. That's all of the teams who are trying to kind of duke at each other at the moment. You saw FaZe just in the background.
TSM 飛ぼうとして戻ってきた
TSM continue on their path forward.
エバって飛んで右側行こうとしたのかな。戻ってきたね。もしかしてクレーバー取りに来た？クレーバーさすがに取ろうって感じで来たんかな。そんなことあるか？クレーバー盤面操作できるからな。実際クレーバーで強いね。
But especially on World's Edge, where it can be a very building-heavy final circle, or at least a building-heavy built-up area, the caustic can really play a factor in those late games. So I'm not surprised that we're seeing a couple start to creep through and really can make a difference in those late games. So we'll have to see whether it can be the same here in North America as it was in EMEA. As Zone 2 beginning to close, most teams have been able to find their way into somewhere comfortable to play. It's only Oxygen and Optic who are not inside the circle.
I can guarantee there's going to...
ローバー？
Stolen off the package?
ローバーに盗まれたんじゃねえかこれ。スティールされた。
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that Reps just dropped his gun to try and pick up the care package weapon and there was nothing on it.
I mean, we do have 3 logos.
But who knows? I have to look back at that one on the VOD to see what happened, but there was nothing in there. I don't know if he was maybe just looking to collect the last pieces, or maybe someone collected it a little bit earlier, but the way it was dropped his gun, it was almost as if he
ローバーいるとケアパケ拾えるのいいな。
Optic Gaming moving their way through Monument.
ダークゼロとディノ。さあディノこれさすがに厳しいじゃないか。この構成でこのタイミングで無理だろう。
Esports also in the vicinity, but Dark Zero who moved into this position on the tracks are looking to make it their own once more.
タイミングがちょっと早すぎる気がする。
Does damage. It's no surprise to see it anymore. If you haven't seen what happens in these situations, get to know it.
さあそうですよね。さすがにこの構成とこのタイミングがちょっと無理やね。 ローバーあれで強いんだったらローバー版がカタリストローバー型版がでギアバケまくりまくったら最強なんじゃねえかってことはディグナイトがメタを作ってるのか。
That's one thing, to be able to ruin Christmas in February, it's a very special skill, it has to be said. Only a few can do it.
December, don't worry about it.
Still remembers it. On his Santa wish list, he starts thinking about, alright, can I get a Kraber this time? Because I got it stolen from me in February. As Skirt are going to be making their way on the western side here. So I'm looking at the west. There is a potential that Skirt could go through the train and find themselves on the western side and maybe force their way into a building. But again, that's going to be a pretty treacherous journey. If they had a little bit more time, they could go far north, just echoing the same kind of rotation we saw from Dark Zero, and there is playable space on the northwest, but I don't know if Skirt are going to have enough time to get there.
カメラ良くなってるね。カメラ個人的感想だけどさ、昔まで TSM がキルし始めたらさ TSM の画面あったから TSM カメラじゃんって思ったけど、最近はちゃんといろんなチーム映してくれるね。なんか今年から APAC サウスのオブザーバーが入った、去年かな、去年のケツぐらいから入ったらしいから視点が気になってる。そしてダークゼロにがっつり寄る。ダークゼロエリアひでえ。TSM 守りきれるか。 GKS が前に来てないか。さあここでもファイトしちゃうと周りにギョフられそうだが、そうだよね。これは完全なる爆破突だ。TSM これは完全にやられましたね。このポジファイトしちゃったら絶対ギュフられるのに来ちゃったな。
Optic Gaming looking to move in on the loot as well. There's so much for them to play with in this situation. They've already got the big Maud weapons as well. You saw Gold R99, you see the 301 fully kitted as well. So Optic Gaming are going to be looted up to their eyeballs. I think that is a saying which I've just created, but you get the point, everyone, okay? Put that on a t-shirt.
Yeah, that's both concerning and playing a very mental picture in my head at the same time. So much loot, and it's all there. Oxygen first place at the moment in the overalls.
残り10秒。ダークゼロがめちゃくちゃいい位置で、ワールドエッジは意外と残るな。あ、ワールドエッジ16くらい残ってんだけど、すごくない？ストーンポイントはめちゃくちゃ減り早かったのに、ワールドエッジはこんなに遅いっていう。おもろいな NA は。さあオプティックドロップが最後切り取った。さあそしてそこを EC が取ったと。エヴァン生きてるか。 TSM 生きてるのかこれ。あ、生きてる。調査キャンプにいるエヴァン。
is the position that they will finish in. Now EA having a look over towards Native. Remember Native who moved very early, as did EA over towards Survey Camp here. But have they been able to do damage?
ここ壁地獄。みんな壁使ってる。
But that 3 could become 2. No, they just about squeeze into the circle away from the zone.
Oh, good shots coming in from Snipe Down, but do they have time to heal here? They can drop down to the low ground for now, but they're not sure.
すごい壁ばっか。
There's another team on the other side of this wall. Snipe Down is going to look across. He's going to find there's not just one team, but maybe there's 2. Snipe Down now left on his own. Has to try and poke and prod. Has to try and play for KP.
さあスナイプ少し味方とずれた位置を打っちゃったかな。いやすごいパーティー入ってるぞ。 LG 後ろ来てるぞ。いやでもいいダメージ2枚落としてる LG。 いやーでも取り切ったか。いや LG が先に落ちた。ポイント取れなかった。オキシジン。おっとオキシジンポイント伸ばしますね。53ポイントだって。今日はオキシジンの日か。
Crazy that Verhulst has managed to stay alive long enough to get into the placement points into the top 6. Elevate still alive.
さあそしてエレベート出てくるとこ抑えたいところでね。でも出てくるからもう抑えればいいんじゃないか。さあダークゼロと SSG ここチャンピオンポジに近いので、このポジ取り切れるか取り切れないか結構変わってくる。
I mean, this could have been the fight and may still well be the final fight of the match if they decide just to back off from one another here. But there was certainly some damage that was done that led to that engagement.
エヴァンまだ生きてるじゃん。TS でも廃用で生きてる。やばい。ああさすがに。でもよく残ったな。7位ぐらいまで残ったんじゃないか。うん。6位か。全然いいじゃん。 よう頑張ったじゃん。最終円オキシジン SSG ダークゼロで、こうなるとオキシジンが俯瞰で上から見えるから強いな。最終リングがどこなるかだけど、右方向か。カタリストの壁あるからやっぱオキシジン有利だね。オキシジンが右方向にカタリストの壁使えばエリアかなり広げられそうだし。ダークゼロどうするかだね。ダークゼロポジション的に SSG かオキシジンにぶつからなきゃいけないけど、行くんだったら SSG 側に行くと思うからファイト選ぶかどうか。ダークゼロポジション的には先に動かないといけない。ダークゼロで SSG は待ち受ける側ですね。でもオキシジン側に少しアプローチしてる。そんな上上がるの？Or if he's going to be congratulating his teammate on a job well done. Oxygen Esports with Digi Threats, they also had a wingman, remember, which can cause so much damage. We've seen the problems the weapon can cause, and having that in the back pocket is enough to stop everybody trying to take any kind of space. SSG どうやって待ち受けるか。まだしてるな。偉いね。まだして完全に待ち受ける体制を作ってる。ダークゼロどうするか。もう来ないといけない。サルティベット、これはもう割り切って手前のファイト選ぶか。でもさすがに詰める側のダークゼロ今回フリー。こうなると最後オキシジン。さあダークゼロが全滅。1人ダウンしてるのでオキシジン2連勝じゃないかこれで。ワンチャンあるか。ベリングやばい。危な。本日のナラティブなかった。死んだぞ。さすがにね。さあオキシジンが2回目のチャンピオンと。さあオキシジン2度目のチャンピオンかこれで。マッチ3とゲーム4、これ2チャンピオンですね。オキシジン現状何位だ。オキシジンはちょっと結構落ちてますね、思った以上に。ここで上がらないと危ないところだが上がっていけるか。でもこれで68ポイント。Everybody had them on that kind of conversation loop and on that pedestal as a team who might be another one to break out in future. オキシジンが現状の1位68ポイント、2位が SSG の42ポイント、ダークゼロ38ポイント、コンプレクシー31ポイント、エレベート29ポイント、TSM29 ポイントって感じですね。
Great call from you. You mentioned it at the start of the show how this could be a week to keep an eye on Oxygen. I'll allow you to take a quick break as I bring Stella back into the fray. Stella, I mean, Oxygen continue to be at the very top of our lobby and continue to impress us no matter what map they find themselves on.
現状の順位こちら。でも言うても NA は2試合しか終わってないんで、2戦しか終わってない分、まだ何が起こってもおかしくないと。だからやっぱあれなんだね、この2月10日以降の2月10日で大体プロリーグの全体が終わって2月10日の全体終わってで2月の10日から2日ぐらいまで大体全部休みと。やっぱ2週間ほぼ3週間休みか。ほぼ3週間休みですね。NA は3週間。A パックの差早いんじゃないかな。同じか。じゃあもう3週間空きますね。3週間か。2月の2月の10日が最終で、次が3月の頭、3月2日。ちょうど丸々3週間空きますね。
Yes, we just go
こう変わる
forward,
と
and there's not much you can
ゼ
do
ンディ
from
ジョン
there. Now, unfortunately, we did see FaZe actually be able to play the game this time, but it was unfortunate they did get taken out kind of early in
エーパッ
mid-game
クノースはいつだっ
because
た
they
か
just weren't able to get that rotation early. We
エー
also
パ
saw
ックノー
that
ス
there was
は
elevate and drop in lagging on the edge of circle, which inevitably did have them eliminated from the match. So there's a lot of rotations that people have to get on top of because I mean, if you don't have that ring console knowledge, it is kind of detrimental
日
to you.
程的な
Yeah,
も
and
の
even though
が
it's one of those circles that's a little bit more predictable without ring console knowledge, it's not a fun circle to
そうだ
play
ね
for any team that has to approach really too far from the south because fighting through epicenter, no one enjoys a lot of
2
kind of
月の
open
10日やっ
areas that you
て
have to try and
3
burst through
月
if you
の
don't have a
2日
catalyst to give you that cover,
で
or
フ
if
ァイ
you've
ナル
run out of your ultimate,
にな
you
る
have
と
your
C
ultimate
グ
to
ルー
use,
プ
then you are
少し
gonna
不利
find
だ
yourself
な
very vulnerable
C グルー
indeed.
プは環境変わ
Small
ってからの
shout out to
2
the
連
teams
戦
who
だ
were
から
able to
ね
run their way to
エ
kind
ーパッ
of
クノースちょっ
higher
と C グル
placements.
ー
I
プ不利
think
っす
TSM
ね
were able to push themselves a little bit further. Verhost
環境変わってか
saw his
ら
teammates go down a little
大
bit
会ですから
earlier, but
ね
still was able to push himself into
少し
6th place. The same could
不
be
利
said
か
for GG or Flat. I'll give them a shout out as a solo player. Sadly, 2 players being disconnected due to the weather issues in North America at the moment. It's in LA, right? There's still it's where you are. How are you still on air? How are you still? Why are you disconnected?
3月の時は例のアーマーのアップデート入ってんのまあ何かしらアップデートは入るだろうね何かしらのアップデートは入るのが3月の時からだろうね多分ちょうど3月2月の10日終わって何日か後がしたらアップデート入るからシーズン20になると思うんでここでがっつりと変わっちゃうなんで2週間か多分アップデート合わせたんじゃないアップデートプラスアジアフェスでいろいろとガラリと変わっちゃうからそれに合わせてまあ
Yeah, I mean, there's so many teams that try and replicate the setup of LAN, like whether it be the same
それが
monitor
変わっ
that
て
is
くるんじゃない
going
です
to
か
be
ね
used, for
どう
example,
なんですかね
just so that they can get a feel for it. So it doesn't surprise me that people would struggle, but apparently not complexity. Anyway, series results sounds like they are ready. Let's take a look, Stella.
Yeah.
現状の順位とトイレしてくるね
My goodness, and 68 total points today. SSG not too far behind, but almost half the kills. And Dark Zero, of course, has 23 kills, but is in 3rd place. What do you make of this?
I mean, Dark Zero are just an incredible fighting team, and they do put themselves in the position where they can pick up KP if placement isn't available to them, so it doesn't entirely surprise me, but it is all about Oxygen and SSG as the leading 2 right now. Elsewhere, the middle of the pack is going to start looking similar to what we saw in EMEA earlier, where a victory could change everything for you and could really elevate you into a position where you can start to look down on those who are going to be in that chasing pack. 2 games remaining, so there is certainly still an opportunity for some of these squads to make a name for themselves. It's starting to look a little bit dire for the likes of Skirt and the likes of FaZe down at the bottom, but if they can get it going in matches 5 and 6, there is still a chance they can push themselves into not just the top 10, but you can still think about top 5 here. It is definitely doable.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even LG on the second page of that roster, I mean, I think they can still make it up as well. They've been having, I think you said it, they've been having a quieter game today, and I don't know what's going on. It could be something, maybe not cohesive with the team today. It could be a lot of different things, but I'm curious. I want to pick your brain on what you think.
プロリーグなんやでもスクリームあるとはいえスクリームだからねまあスクリームは結局スクリームだからな本場がないとやっぱ環境違ったりするし難しいっすよね確かに C グループそう考えるとフナティックが圧倒的フナティックがいるだけで不利なんだよな C グループそれだけでちょっと苦しいなそう思うとフナティックがいるから1位取るのかなり難しいとこの暇な時間で A パックノースもう一回見るか A パックノース現状のポイントこれでしょで C で言うとフナティックとパルブレックスフナパルブどこだフナパルブやっぱIの方どっちだやっぱ下の方に落ちてるねC グループやっぱ苦しそうだね C 苦しいねまだ1個少ないとはいえ A よりかなり C グループ下の方に固まってんな ドスコイ、ディグ、NSD、ネビラ。1、2、3、4、5、6。フナ以外のチームは苦しそうだよね。パルブはでもいい感じだけどね。パルブまだ悪くないよね。パルブ、一戦少なくてこの順位でしょ。パルブも平均的だけどかなりいい方。ディドルがこんな上に来るとは思ってなかったからすごい。そうね、ディドルも俺はそう思うわ。ディドル大体ここら辺がフナとディドルが、フナティック1ポイント追加されてる。ボーナスポイント。これでフナティックが72ポイント。現状トップ。25、21と書いてるのに、1チームだけ26という。おかしいですよね。まだ今日ワンチャンオキシジンが取るかもしれないからな。現状ポイント的にこれあと2ゲームある中でオキシジンがチャンピオン取ればオキシジンもボーナスポイント。なんならこれワンチャン50ポイント差つけれるんじゃないか、この点数だったら。昨日はねちょっとフナティックめちゃくちゃ調子良かったけどリジェクトも良かったからな。昨日はDJ も普通に良かったよな。これリジェクトもめっちゃ良かったからな。ここまで77ポイントだっけ、76ポイント、75と76で競ったもんな。リジェクトも悪くなかったんだけどフナティックがちょっと強すぎたわ今回は。ワンチャン50ポイント差あるかなと思ったけどね。
About as good as you could have expected, not only from a new team, but they were obviously splitting a POI in that game day number 1. Game day number 2 was a concern for me because they really did fall off a little bit, and now I'm looking at these last 2 games as how we're kind of going to judge this phase lineup, right? Because it's been slow so far. There hasn't been too many good moments for them.
リジェクトは最後ハイドにやられたのも悲しかったね。まあ確かにあのハイド偉かったんだけどな、めちゃくちゃ偉かったんだけど、めっちゃ偉かったんだよな、スモーク使ってね、すごい偉かったけど。偉かったけどね。まあ相手のあのハイドが強すぎたね。しかもレブっていう。世界大会日本開催なら見に行きたいけど、アジアフェス日本だし可能性下がるのかな。ああ確かに。そう思ったらアジアフェス日本である分日本開催っていうのがちょっとなさそうか。どこなるんだろうな。もう会場とか教えてほしいよな、そろそろ。もう教えてもいいだろう、準備しとくのに。あれだったらフラットがハベって感じですかね。
SSG also have ring console to work with at Climatizer, Elevate have one to work with, LG are going to have one at Lava Fisher, so Lava Fisher and Countdown both have them, even Drop-In Gaming at Landslide, so a lot of the kind of more central POIs, or close to central, like Landslide, are going to have the ability to
アジアフェスはリハーサルだったら嬉しいっすね。そして北アンチ、何回北アンチあんのマジで。北多すぎだろ。ワールドエッジ北多すぎ問題。なんか仕込んでるやろ絶対。北ばっかなんだけど。もう来たよ北アンチ。毎日10戦ぐらい見てんだから、北の多さがもう顕著に出すぎですよ。10試合毎日10試合見てからね、なんか毎日また北アンチだ、ストップは南アンチだとか言ってる気がするもん。多すぎだよ。
Rotating through Epicenter isn't enjoyable for anybody, except maybe the team that has some high ground to work with. There's just so many ups and downs, so many difficult fights that you have to take, a lot of open ground as well that you'll find yourself in when you think you're safe and you slide around a corner and there's a team just waiting for you, because everyone has enough playable area where they can kind of be in a congested space in Epicenter, but they're not really enough playable area to do anything with. So it's going to be another circle that's frustrating one, I'd say, for those who are rotating a little bit later.
Oh my goodness. I think that Lou was trying to use that balloon, by the way, to see what SSG were doing. I think he could see that they had a console on the map over. He was trying to use that to see what it was going to be, but he just gave it so much juice. And he's just guaranteed an easy kill to SSG. So what might have been a little bit of a 200 IQ play has ended up kind of putting his team on the back foot here.
多分 SSG がアンチ呼んでたから、アンチ呼んだチームに対してポジション調査キャンプってアンチ見ないからどこだっけってなって、ちゃんとそのバルーンで見ながら敵が来る位置見張って飛んできたタイミングでポジション取りたかったんだろうけど、 SSG はもうこの高台を抑えるの確定してたから、そのままドカチンしてきたね。やりたいことはわかるけどリスクがすごすぎる。
Towards Epicenter, it's already clogged up like a block drain, and someone's gonna have to try and unplug it.
Wondered how you're going to finish that sentence, I have to say. Anyway, TSM, they're going to be taking a much different approach to things. They're going to be moving through the Vault Tunnel at the moment. On the Geyser side of things, they're going to be shadowing what FaZe are doing at the moment. So of all the teams, I think that you want to maybe be avoiding a fight.
上キャンにも結構入ってきたね。これ塩色起こせたか？起こせているか？起こしているが起こしているが 正面別パーティー、これどうするか。さあ一回ここは前に出る判断だが、でも結構削られてんな、正面のチームに。
But I don't think Complexity are going to push up on this because they're well aware of how close SSG were based off what had happened earlier.
在入が SSG に移動した。PLP がそのまま SSG に加入して SSG が復活という形になりましたね。
A little bit rough looking for them at the moment on their rotate. Not the armors you really want. They're going to have to play for height and poke damage. A lot of people seem to be betting in and around survey camp as well, but there's a lot of people playing in and around epicenter at the moment on kind of some of the hilly areas. And I think that's a good indication to hark back to what we were saying at the start of this game, right? I don't think anyone is 100% convinced on where this zone is going to be playing. And again, look at that map overhead. I think that gives you a pretty good indication of exactly that. Zone 3 info might be vital to teams.
Yeah, so I wonder whether teams like Dark Zero might just wait and hit that ring console once more. GKS can do the same after going from thermal up to staging. Skirt can do it at Harvester, and Optic can do the same thing at Geyser. So we are seeing, you know, our main edge teams here who probably would have the ability to do it anyway, but they're going to learn a lot of information which the teams who have already moved are not going to have access to. So that will give them the opportunity to potentially dive in late and find playable space of where maybe someone hasn't predicted if the zone pulls in a certain way.
Well, Native at the moment, they're kind of trying to, I would say, defend the ring console. It always feels on this central platform in Monument. They're going to have a line of sight onto it. They're also more than aware that there's a team underneath them at the moment, so they've got to be very careful on how they do try and move. It's going to be Eternal, who are very close, and over at Fragment itself are TSM, so if they see this breaking out and they see a few knocks going down, then they'll be more than happy to try and maybe move in and clean up these pieces. He's claimed there was some nice shots with that flat line. Control that recoil beautifully to make sure that he breaks those shields.
It's going to be a bit sticky if either of these teams do decide to send.
でもなんかバルセッチ意外と素直だな。素直にアンチ言ってくれてるね、今回は。
Native have to be aware
アン
of
チ
that
素直
and
くん。
shouldn't try and commit too heavily. A dark veil was had to be used just to try and stay
ちょっ
alive.
と長引きすぎかな、この EEC とネイティブの戦闘。別パーティー来てもおかしくないぞ。長いと。
Watching the map overhead and Skirt didn't stay towards Harvester. Instead, they started to move into Fragment. Potentially, they are thinking about this ring console at Monument like the other few squads are as well. And now is your opportunity. Now is your chance to start hitting those ring consoles if you had them
TSM
available
か
to
な
you.
もしかしたら。
Optic definitely are doing so, as you
あ
can
あ、
see.
TSM が近くにいるからやめた
Dark
と。
Zero chose not to, and GKS will be able to do as well at Harvester. And Oxygen can do it at Landslide.
Yeah, it does look like the Hill House where we were
超
thinking.
キャン側にがっつり寄るのかな、これ。超キャン側のリングは見えてるけど。超キャンまで寄り切るかどうかがちょっと分かんないと。
The Oxygen have already managed to establish, so a big opportunity for SSG, of course, playing under the SSG banner. If you're watching for the first game today and you're wondering who's SSG, former PLP. So PLP become SSG. Simple.
And I mean, it makes sense for SSG, right? You pick up a team that has a former LAN champion on it. There's not too many of them in Apex Legends.
さあ TSM いい仕事する。
Advantage of the ones that are available as TSM
キルポイント狙いたいが1キルぐらい取れそうか。
But they might be able to pick up a little bit of KP, especially with the black hole being tossed towards them.
さあ8キル入った TSM。おいしい。なんか別部隊？いや、来てはないか。いや、入ってきてる。TSM これ気づかないんじゃないか。さあ、これどうだ。さあ、TSM。さあ、急に来られて少し嫌な状況だが、相対するは、アルブラリリー君です。過去一緒に世界大会取った男。
Nice. Smoking us. Can we walk in? I got killed in the back.
やべっちゃ線がある。
I'm here inside. Come inside. I can't cross. Can you come to me, Evan? You need to play for res. You need to wall or play for res or something.
I'm walling for res.
They ran away. I'm playing res.
Yeah.
さあフェロバリケルで起こす判断。周りのチームとしても攻めてこれないでしょうかね。これは TSM よかったね。危ねえ。TSM 少し危なかった。
Something you got to keep your eye on in those fights, Dan, is one line of sight, one bullet from a 30-30, and all of a sudden you feel like you're in a clean fight, but it becomes a little bit messy and a little bit more awkward just because you weren't paying attention to that LOS.
Yeah, TSM did do well to stabilize and make sure they are still going to be a full 3. Now, GKS, who were able to get
オキシジンワイド、オキシジン3連あればフナティックに次ぐボーナスポイントチーム。ワンチャン3連ありますからね。ワンチャンとか全然あるんだ。なんなら4連まで考えられますからね。この強豪ひめく AB ブロックで3連チャンピオンだったらめちゃくちゃ熱いけどな。そしてダークゼロが DIG にぶつかってる。どこだ？ダークゼロ北だよな。北側のチームに当たったんかな。
Good, thank goodness you're here when it comes to maths. Honestly, I know I say it a lot, but I am thick as two planks when it comes to that stuff.
Hey, there's always a 1% chance I could be wrong as well, so, you know, we have to just bear that in mind. But I think my memory might serve me right. Now, Eternal, they are holding their self-weather position. Actually, GKS and Oxygen got past Eternal. I thought Eternal were going to hold them both out, but Eternal stayed in their building, so he was able to rotate.
別パーティーから正面。いやー、ワトソンのパイロンあって助かるな、これ。ダークゼロ。ワトソンパイロンで自分たちのエリアがずっと取れてる。いやー、オキシジンだ。ダークゼロ落とした。なんかクレーバーあったくね？のせいか。ああ、オキシジン落ちちゃった。これで3連チャンピオンの夢が。なんか LG スイートがブスと生きた。泥棒！これ怒ってくんじゃない？ダークゼロ怒ってこないか？めちゃくちゃコソ泥してったぞ LG。てかアンチこっち触れてるんだけど見て、ほら左上やばくない？左上めちゃくちゃ触れてたけどやばいぞ、あのアンチ。戻り方キモ。マジでキモい戻り方してたぞ。ダークゼロにダークゼロ吸ってんじゃねえか、アンチ。
Devastating in those kind of positions. If you hit one nice frag grenade, one nice thermite. I mean, we saw the thermite that took Optic Gaming down a little bit earlier on. One thermite grenade pretty much took down all three of them, or certainly stripped away enough shields and damage for the cleanups to be very, very simple. And I wonder if that's something we're going to see a little bit more frequently. Watson picks as we move through North America in the weeks coming. Oblivion though stuck on the bridge at the moment. Kind of safe, kind of not safe. Another example of one of these spots which we would say is playable but not comfortable.
Yeah, no one's really enjoying it out of these three, and I imagine comms are very hectic at the moment, but they are making it work. That's important. Speaking of making it work, can FaZe make something work here on this bridge? Not in where Pandas currently resides, but of course he can join his teammates, and they can hold the kind of northern tip of the bridge. FaZe below them. Did he even see them there?
I hope he did.
I'm not sure he did. Maybe.
In all honesty, I hope he did. Don't think he did.
SKRT だ。
Along the edges of the zone. I think Snipedown's just it, surely.
さあこれは移動のためのローリングサンダーでしょ。これは戦闘しなさそうだけどな。そしてアンチがめちゃくちゃずれるという。見てください、このひどいアンチを。右上に一切入ってないという。上キャンこれ入ってるのか、そもそも。
made their way into the silos, and you know it could prove to be an issue for FaZe as they try and escape here.
I mean, the only thing I could think, maybe FaZe saw them and just thought, hey, we can let them go past.
なんかめっちゃ短い壁ある。
The team underneath, and then we third party it. Sometimes that is a call that is made, but for me, it just looked like an opportunity for some free KP. If they would have seen it, a couple of players can look down.
いやー、ダークゼロめちゃくちゃ有利やな。やばい、ダークゼロ忖度アンチだ。
that Phoenix kit, and now FaZe are going to make their move. They are going to drop down. It looks like they're going to be winning a few fights as well. A couple of cleanups going to come in. Should be able to finish off a few more kills as well. And you can see Zeratricky is going to get one. Phony's going to move in for a few more as well. And FaZe, maybe this is their moment. Maybe this is where the Phoenix starts to at least raise its wings up a little bit.
I was going to say, it has to be this game, really, for FaZe. I mean, sure, you can go into match 6 and hope for a big pop-off game, but you don't want to leave yourself in that spot. You want to be able to try and do as much here as possible. And the armor looks good, the weapons look good, the positioning looks okay. I mean, FaZe are going to have to go through a lot of teams here. They do have an evac tower to work with, so they can try and dive over everyone, but if they force their way through, they're potentially just going to end up in what is a blender of Epicenter at the moment. Keep an eye on this kill feed in the next 35 seconds. It's about to pop off.
Yeah, it's about to go wacky mode, which is a technical term that is used in Apex Legends. Zeratricky trying to move in, though. He's got the Digi threat, and he's doing some good damage. His teammates are backing him up as well. The Digi threat could be the Digi difference at the moment, but he's got to be careful because he isn't aware.
そしてフェイズが全滅、移動できなかったんですね。いや、このアンチグロいな、マジで。グロすぎる。マジでグレー。
You're right. Keep your eyes on the kill feed because if you don't, you're going to miss a lot of teams falling. Oblivion go as well. TSM go
and TSM. Maybe even SSG could be next. 9 squads remain. We had 16 just mere moments ago.
ダークゼロがめちゃくちゃ切れたね。ダークゼロがすごいよ。でもいいよ。上のチーム上がってきたよ。いや、ダークゼロもピンピンしてんだよな、一応。火力がやばすぎる。いや、落とせたら、おお、最後落とせたったらこれワンチャンある。ゼザリオありますよ。ダークゼロも2人だからもう降りざるを得ない。ダークゼロちょっとキルを狙っていった分ポジションが取られてしまったね。ここどうするか。少しでも多くキルを持って帰りたいダークゼロ。チェンバー店が少し苦しい。さあ、エレブエイト残るダークゼロのゼロを倒せるか。さあ、LG もうちょっと苦しいか。いや、上から打ち下ろしてるからね。これはいけないんじゃないですか、LG。いや、めちゃくちゃいいダメージ、スイート。おお、LG 取り切った。お、ゼロ生き残ってるぞ、地味に。コンプレクシー落ちる。 LG 正面。ガス残ってる。ガスチームこれ何びっくりした。めちゃくちゃ棒立ちやん。びっくりした。落ちたかと思った。残り4部隊。ダークゼロのゼロ落ちたんかな。あ、3部隊か。もうエレブエイト。
Yeah, we have to start looking at who has to move first, and likelihood is it's DNO who might be targeted, and if they're not targeted, then they have to make a decision of who do they try and jump on. Oh, that's a good amount of damage though. Have to be careful if you're elevated.
でも先ほどやっぱ言ったダークゼロが上取ったポジションですよね。あの上のポジが強いよな。ノーティー立ちゃったよね。カオティック。この上のポジ強すぎる。ディノとエレブエイトがぶつかって GKS がチャンピオンですかね、これ。
just to make that a little bit less awkward than it needed to be. But one thing that's interesting is DNA do have a Valkyrie by the looks of things.
これ割り切るか？割り切りますね。さすがにもうポジション無理だということで割り切ってキルを狙う判断だがディノがやばい。さあこのホライゾンルとアークサー相手のホライゾンが強すぎる。さあさすがにねホライゾン強すぎだろう。全部破壊しきったぞ。こうなるともう GKS 待ってるだけですからね。はい GKS さすがにねさすがにこのアンチは GKS 圧倒的有利でしたね。まあ上のポジション強すぎるわ。ダークゼロちょっとキルポイント狙いすぎたか。キルポイント多分狙って落ちちゃった感じするよな。
fighting last. I know it's a tale as old as time with Apex Legend, but sometimes it is as simple as that. Be the last team to enter the engagement.
Well, Dan, take a few seconds, my friend. Get your breath back. Prepare for game number 6. It's a time to bring Stella back in before we get the game underway for the last one of the day. Stella, welcome back. It's I always enjoy, by the way, I will say, sending Dan away. I don't know what it is about it, just dismissing him. I'm like, go, Dan, leave.
Shoo shoo, we're done.
Exactly. But come back, please, Dan. I need you. I can't count.
Yes. It was, man, these matches have been incredible to watch today. I mean, they're also a little bit heartbreaking to see the circles pull and see teams struggling to get there. Epicenter is a horrible last circle. I would not wish that on my worst enemy.
これで
GKS did so well at playing that high ground and
5試合が終わったと。5試合が終わったところの結果はこちら。オキシジンが1位68ポイント、2位ダークゼロ、3位 SSG、4位エレブエイト、5位コンプレックス3、6位 TSM って感じですね。LG ちょっと失速気味。このような感じですね。ダークゼロやっぱ安定してんな。NA という強豪ひしめくこの NA で現状このままいくと1位独走するか。今オキシジンが取っても別にダークゼロのあれと関係ないのでダークゼロまだ2試合なんでここからまた盛り返す可能性あるな。LG はちょっとここでこけたかないですね。少しこけ気味だからまあこけてないけどちょっとポイントを伸ばしたい。
Yeah, I agree with you. I think LG, the most impressive thing for me, it's kind of, I want to talk about LG and Dark Zero very quickly. LG went for an early spot, and like we saw in that zone, very difficult to hold an early spot with some of the lack of cover that you had, a lack of reset options you had in those spots, and they did brilliantly to navigate their way.
NA の2ってなんかおかしくね。NA の2ってめちゃくちゃなんか A を置くね。ああ、その前か。同じか。同じ感覚か。目がバグってたわ。
Yeah, all the top 10 teams here, it was a feat to get into that circle and fight for that. And I do want to point out, I mean, hey, FaZe has been able to get some KP on the board. They've been able to get some points at this point with us going into the last game. It's going to be a little bit tough crawling your way up to at least 10th place, but I am glad to see them getting some points, and Native Gaming still in 17th, and they have not been able to get any points this round.
Yeah, surprisingly quiet game for Oxygen Esports, but they're allowed one, let's be real. We'll take a look at the top 3 as well from
なんで NA だけ一周なんだろう。他のリージョンも一周ずつじゃないかな。日本以外は全部一周ずつじゃないか。いい宮はどうなんですかね。いい宮多分一周ずつだよね。エーパックノースだけじゃないか。エーパックノース、エーパックサウスだけはまとめてやってますね。何なんですかね。どういう差なんでしょうか。エーパックノースとエーパックサウスだけは一周で2回やったりしますけどね。何なんだろうな。何が違うんでしょうね。
Yeah, and you bring up a good point. I mean, I think that maybe today was a great way for them to test their team and their team spirit because these zones have been so rough. It helps them prepare for all the worst situations, right? But of course, going to qualify, it does suck having to face these things. But we do get to see the series results overall right now, and it's Oxygen Esports at top with 68 total points, and Dark Zero close behind with 51. And hey, your favorite SSG just 1 point off for being in second place.
Yeah, very good performances, and I will say that Oxygen Esports 0-point game, I believe it was, if my memory serves me right. Again, please come back down to remind me of the numbers. Oxygen Esports, by getting 0 points, has kind of opened things up, right? Dark Zero probably looking at it and going, hey, we got one more game left, we could win. And SSG are probably thinking, hey, we got one more game left, we could win. Elevate, exactly the same. So even though maybe before this game we were saying Oxygen have done enough to maybe take home first place this week, now it's completely wide open as to who might take that first place home.
Yeah, it just shows you how much power missing one game it can be for a team, and it's incredible. What I'm really excited to see how Game 6 is going to pan out for us. But first, if you think you have what it takes to get into ALGS, don't worry, Challenger Circuit number 2 registration opens February 5th. Unfortunately, Challenger Circuit Split 1 did start yesterday, February 3rd for North America. So just to remind you of the teams that did make it out of that, we do have GKS and Elevate as part of the challengers from qualifiers. So very excited to see what new teams we may see out of that, and really excited, but hopefully the circles aren't as rough for challengers.
Hey, look, you got to play every single circle. You can't have ones that are pulling towards your POI where you got ring console and the center of the zone to play from. It's all about adaptability.
That is true, and I think I do love that about Apex, just the fact that the RNG can be all over the place. So it really makes you test your game knowledge and your rotation knowledge, and it really does come down to just, are we able to fight through all of this lobby? Sometimes you can. I mean, looking at Oxygen.
世界大会いつかわかりますか？世界大会はこれ書いてんじゃないか？
Best of luck to them. We're going to take a quick break, and
世
when we
界
come
大
back,
会
match
は
number 6, the final one, will be ready.
違った、こっちか。プレイオフは皆さん気をつけてくださいね。雪に気をつけろってあるのか分かんないけど、まあ、気をつけてください。なんかすごいらしいからな。都内でも降る。都心なのでも最大5センチの積雪が予想されますって。やばくない？積もるじゃん。今降ってんのかな？今降ってる？ 今降ってますか？ちょっと東京住んでる人教えて。今降ってる雪。
Oxygen going back to back and putting 2 victories on the board, and they are our lobby leaders right now. But with a slightly earlier exit in match 5, or a much earlier exit in match 5, it has opened up the window potentially for other teams to start to catch them here.
Keep your eyes on Dark Zero here.
あー、寒いねだな。
When the pressure is on match 6 is when they start to come to life and they are within
寝て過ごしていいですか。寝て過ごしていいですか。まあ、てかもう眠いから寝たいんだよな。これ終わったら。さすがに。
This is the kind of game that you hope is going to be set up ahead of your final game of the day. Everything's still to play for. All the places could change. We don't know who's going to win this thing, so let's find out.
Yeah, this is going to be a big opportunity for some of these teams in the mid-table situation to make something of themselves in this match day. Put a big performance down. Circle is going to play a big part, of course. We've had two very similar circles so far, which has been pretty treacherous for those on the southern side. So they'll be hoping for a little bit more of a favorable pull. But again, you can only play what is in front of you. But our lobby leaders, Oxygen, dropping down towards staging. Are they going to have a ring console? Doesn't look like it. So they're going to have to just play with what they can see here. And looking at this circle is not the easiest circle to try and predict if you don't have ring console information. But at least it's going to be a little further south. We're not going to epicenter again, but it's close enough for some of those teams.
If I don't have ring console right now and you go, where are we going? Somewhere in the middle, mate. Just don't worry about somewhere in the middle. It'll be fine. But dropping gaming, they're going to be in a very good position at landslide. But we know that landslide is very difficult to coexist. I imagine it's going to be finishing in and around the tower. We do see those tower finishes.
今回はランスラカウントダウンかな。
North of where we can see on that zone, but for Elevate, I mean, what an opportunity it is for them to get priority position and maybe put themselves in with a chance of winning today's gameplay. One thing that we should mention as well, Landslide did have a ring console, so maybe they can play off of the back of what Dropping Gaming do.
Yep, LG also had one at Lava Fisher, so they're going to have that information. Elevate, can they win? They are 20 points behind first place. If Oxygen were to be eliminated and Elevate were to win with 8+ kills, doable, all right? Winnable. There is a chance, and I'm going to say there is a chance. Outside of Complexity, SSG, Dark Zero, very unlikely, maybe nearly impossible. So those are the three teams we're going to be keeping an eye on to try and take a victory here today. But also, we're trying to tell that story of guys who are in the mid-table, trying to push themselves into the top 10. As right now, Scurry are taking some damage. Scurry trying to scurry away. And he's just able to get around the corner.
Yeah, Scurry taking damage, Albrolele outputting damage. However, this spot is a little bit ugly for them. You can see the Sweet wants to try and really put some pressure on, maybe get a little bit of damage to send Slayer and Funk down to finish things off, but instead decides to retreat smartly. Complexity, they're going to be taking the truck that I mentioned a little bit earlier, and I always say this, right? Truck is playable, but very nadeable, and if you haven't got a Watson gen down or a Watson to play, then those windows are a problem.
The good news is Fuse has not really been prevalent in this lobby. We've seen the kind of downward trend of Fuse as of late, with other legends becoming more viable and more important in this meta. So at least you have that on your side if you are going to be playing truck. But that doesn't mean people aren't going to be carrying nades. So you are going to be extremely vulnerable to them for sure. But as you mentioned, if you've got somewhere to play, you can definitely work with it. It might not be a game-winning play, so you may have to start thinking about where you can go afterwards and how you're actually going to win from that position.
I tell you what, that is a care package.
最終ゲームだからね、各チームポイントないところは全部するだろうし、最後どう動くんでしょうね。
The fact they get Digithreat inside of this tunnel as well, plus they're running Bangalore. I mean, it's you could have asked for more, really, to come down off that care package. It gives them so much loot. Plus, speaking of loot, you can see a little bit of vault action. It's almost as if I forget they exist sometimes.
Honestly, I love
あんま入ってないな。思ったよりかチームいないな。
the rings or something, but it is just such a powerful damage dealer, and you can really catch teams off guard with it. You can literally pluck them out of the sky, and then your team can send it if you are able to deal that damage from a mid-range distance, I would say. So Elevate have that opportunity, but you're completely right. They are a real threat in this vault area, and any team is going to be potentially obliterated if they walk into the unknown here.
エレベーター読めてないけど、とりあえずスカイフグが読める、スカイフグ側かもしれないということでね、真ん中の洞窟だね。読めてないから、どっちにも行けるようにしてるね。そしてランスラー上はランパーとか固めるという。ランパローバなんかなの？ランパローバガスか？ ランポもいなかったから多分ガスローババルとかなんだろうな。ランスラで逆にランパにした瞬間去るっていう。今回ランスラアンチだからめちゃくちゃラッキーや。
Even with Klein taking that amount of damage, they should be safe here, but they are slowly just trying to find a better playable area with where they are, but also maybe even considering, do we try and take this fight if we can get the jump on someone?
Well, you do have ring console information, so they're going to be they know they're going to be safe in their position for at least the next couple of zones. And they can hold out, like you say, a lot of teams who try and move through Fragment, which is a safer way to rotate because there's so many buildings to do. And use as cover. Here comes Optic Gaming, who, again, quiet. This is the Optic Gaming team we were
緊急級ボテックめちゃくちゃいいや。
championships, and they don't look like that team at the moment.
They don't, and
緊急級強いよな。リロード早いし。前よりか弱体化しちゃったけど全然まだ強いだろうな。
In the online competition. Now, 11th isn't that bad. 21 points is okay. If they can stay in the top 10, then they are still going to be averaging a decent amount of points each week and should be able to get themselves towards playoffs with an average performance. But I guess that's the goal, right? Everyone just wants to get to playoffs. You don't have to be the leader going into playoffs as long as you get there.
Well, this is Dark Zero, and this is versus Elevate. So now we are seeing some real action take place, and Dark Zero are trying to force this. Unfortunately for Zero, the barrage isn't really going to be useful for him here because the Bangalore ult is just going to hit the mountaintops and not any bodies. So they decide to back out of this one. They also used the Beast of the Hunt. They wanted to try and get an early pick there and use everything to try and do so, but having recognized that the damage wasn't done, Dark Zero smartly back away, and that's something that I think they do very well as well, Dan. They kind of commit hard for that initial knock. They don't get it.
Very good at getting in and out, our Dark Zero. One of the reasons why they are one of the best teams in North America, if not the world. They probably realized that a Digithreat was present as well with how much shots they took. So they quickly got out of that one and said, look, it's not a fight we should be taking. Speaking of fights, Black Hole goes down. Oblivion will destroy it very quickly, though. They were trying to press this building, but the Black Hole came out in a very defensive manner.
They managed to get the Conjurer ult in themselves as well as having to dodge the enemy one. Nobody going to be spotted though, so I think they forced their way into the building. They're going to be safe. Native, couple of death boxes are going to be left. One of them the one-winged Angel death box, by the way. Got my first Final Fantasy VII reference in today.
Oh, he's begun again, everyone. At least we got to match 12 today, technically, before he got his first one out, but at least he managed to sneak it in for all you Final Fantasy fans.
I think we should go here.
Sometimes I surprise myself with how much of a nerd I actually am. Anyway, Oblivion trying to take this fight. L-Star. Not going to have a mag on it, but we know it does some output.
スファイトですね。これまたも漁夫来ないんかなこのポジション。
The L-Star is good for that, just to continuously output fire and it destroy a few lines of sight as well.
さあラストここはテンパーが落ちたと。いややっぱ漁夫来るよね。そうですよね。このポジションはさすがに漁夫来ますよね。このタイミング大円の時間だから漁夫は絶対来そうだった。
Looks like maybe Akimbo's going to be able to get away, but, you know, what are you going to do here? You could potentially craft banners, but at this stage of the game, it's going to be difficult, but certainly that could be a journey that he goes on. Wonder if he'll find a fellowship. That's 3 Lord of the Rings references, and I was giving you stick. I'm really sorry.
I know, and the thing that annoyed me most about that is he's running along with a Buster Sword, and you go for it. It's almost sacrilegious to do that. Anyway, FaZe inside of a fight now, and they need to win this one. It's as simple as that. FaZe need a game here. They need to be aggressive. They need KP as well as placement points if they want to be in a reasonable, and I say reasonable, not exceptional position at the end of today. They want to see this building. Inside of this building is going to be Team Cream, but they can't get in for now.
FaZe want to though. Look at it. They're just desperate, but now with the barricade coming down,
結構時間かかっちゃったけど大丈夫か？
They don't have to force this too quickly. Look where the circle is. They do have time, but maybe they've had a little ear to the ground situation. They realize another team is quite nearby. I think it's Native Gaming who are close enough to influence this fight. But Cream have been able to get out of the building here, so it's not like they're stuck. But they're certainly in the more difficult position. Playing from low ground here, trying to take a team off the top is never fun. But look at Native. They are almost waiting to get involved in this one, waiting for the knocks to happen before they join in.
Yeah, Native just a duo, of course, so they're going to be waiting for an opportunity. A third party here can be really, really big for them. If they have the banner as well, they may be able to move a little bit north into the zone and get Rambo, I believe it was, who was taken down, back into this game. But FaZe do want to fight this. You can see they're not happy, they're not content. They know that they are under pressure and that a fight will change. Maybe their momentum going into the final moments of this last game if they can get there, but it looks also like an evac tower has been put down and they might be thinking about leaving. Elsewhere.
Yeah, just get out of there. Sometimes when the fight goes on too long, sometimes it is just about escaping. As our one caustic team, we just had a little Eye of the Eagle on just to check in and see how they're doing, and it seems like they are fine at the moment. Flat eliminated.
DSM がフラット落としてるよ。GG どこだったっけ？ GG ランスラがいなかったっけ？ DSM 落としてんな。あ、DSM も落ちちゃってる。彼が落ちた。さあ、ここはフェイズとクリーム。さあ、ワンペなんか？さっと一滴有利やクリーム。なんか別パーティー来たー。フェイズが全滅。ネイティブか。
Native time it absolutely perfectly.
Native 入ってきたね。
Delighted with this because as you mentioned, a duo they can get some loot and there is always the potential of getting a third player back up if they have the banner.
そしてダークスプロスタックス？
As now TSM we take a look towards what's happening in their scenario. It's going to be Van Verhulst.
さあ 1v1 は絶対バーハルソ。 余裕で入ったけどギョフられちゃったって感じかな。少しねポイント増したいね TSM。 これまたバーハルソの一人旅が始まっちまうのか。さあ上やばくない？めちゃくちゃいいやん。しかもランパだしエピギャング。この上最高じゃん。ランパローバしかローバだしめちゃくちゃ触ってんだけどこのアンチで一番いいやん。一番いい構成やんこれ。
Circle starting to close in now, and Dark Veils are having to be used from some of these teams that are rotating. Native being one of those, by the way. Eternal are going to be forcing their way in from the west, but Skirt and Dark Zero not going to be too far behind. And some of these teams are going to be forced together in their rotate. And, you know, when you're crossing open space in Landslide, again, similar to Epicenter, there is cover available, but after you reach that cover, you have to try and play like gladiators almost, of getting to the next point of interest just to stay alive.
You know what's crazy? Who's in the best position in zone right now? Oxygen Esports are in a fantastic position. Optic Gaming might be the only team who can really upset them as they're moving through the train tunnel and might have a little bit of an angle, but also a team who could upset anyone right now is going to be Complexity. Why? Kraber in the hands of Monsoon.
Put some montage clips on the board. 4 bullets, plenty to work with. That could be 4 kills for Monsoon. It could be 4 knocks.
この鉄塔やばいな。鉄塔大人気。いやでも移動しないといけないな。ランパチームマジでこれチャンスだな本当に。ランパチームマジでやばくねえか。ポイントめっちゃ乗りそう。
No, you're absolutely fine. I had a little giggle as well, but look at SSG. Look at the position they currently hold, and they're in a good spot right now, but they won't be in about 2 seconds when this circle starts to move in. Where do they go from here? You know, I predicted SSG in this last game, and I'm starting to wonder whether that might come to a very quick end shortly, as all these northern teams are going to have to move south. So Dark Veils, evac towers, whatever you've got to traverse this open ground, use it now.
Well, a really smart decision here from Monsoon. Doesn't connect with the shot, but just using that evac, it's not about rotation sometimes, it's about getting information. Just went halfway up and decided that he's got enough of a lay of the land to try and plan a rotation for his squad. The shots aren't quite hitting for now, but 1 bullet can change everything, and he's only got 1 bullet left. Will it be a golden one?
いやアンチが苦しい。コンプレックス左のキル取って終わりか。いやーこれマジで真ん中からの車線やばいな。
Always have to tee it up as a maybe, but complexity out in 11th, down to our last 10 now. So everyone getting 2 placement points. Native in a real scrap at the moment. Crook's taking a lot of damage there, but Stunning might be able to help out. But look at the position that we see some of these squads in and the ability that they have to work with. Skirt, Albrelelli as a rat. I mean, they're in 20th position. I don't even think if Albrelelli was to win,
ランパチームさ移動したんだけど
really help much here.
上入らないと思って移動したんか。 JKS 多分バス行ったよな。バスに行ってますよね。カオティックになってる。
So Oxygen still alive in first, Dark Zero still alive in second. After that, we're looking all the way down to 7th for GKS. So a real opportunity for GKS to
さあ
start
最
to
終
set
円
themselves
ダークゼロも取ってるけどこの後伊藤やばいか。
Elevate might be a
ゼロ
little
だ
bit
け
too far for them, but a victory still makes it possible to
ダー
push
クゼロゼロ
themselves
だけかも
into
な。
top 4 as Drop-in Gaming eliminated in 9th. And it's not a bad position for GKS, but they will have to drop off this high ground.
そしてオキシジェンこのポジション。オキシジェンこれでさ取ったら3連チャンあるぞ。3チャンあるからワンチャンボーナスポイントつくぞ。オキシジェンチャンスタイムこっちまで打ってくれることなかなかないもんな。
Oxygen would have to be eliminated now for Dark Zero to really have a chance of catching them in first place. So it's looking good for Oxygen, looking likely that they will be our overall winners in
エトナリシここに詰めんの。いやきつそうさすがに。
Oh wow, they're so quickly forced back as they just run into an absolute
いや
wall
さ
of
すがに苦しいよ
bullets.
ね。
And suddenly Carter's the last remaining player, and it looks like Eternal about to be sent back to the lobby as 7 squads are about to become 6.
うんさすがに苦しかったね。ディノも移動しないといけないのか。うわめちゃくちゃ美味しい。 GKS2 連チャンあるじゃん。2連続取ったことによってこれでかなりポイント戻れるんじゃないか。めっちゃチャンスやね。いやオキシジンがすごいいいところ。オキシジンこれで3チャンピオンマジで近い。後ろ多分切れたっしょこれで。 They are bursting into the top 5 in the overalls here, but it's all about Oxygen as they look to try and get a third victory. Dark Veil will come down, but the stick is going to be everything for the damage.
Pretty sure they got the stick there inside the train car onto an Optic player. Saw 75 pop up, but they can't play off the back of it thanks to the Dark Veil coming in from Optic, which slows down their
残り5部隊。
But the good news is
エペギャングどうするんだ。
they can play this slowly and they know Optic don't have that available next time.
オプティックはオキシジン詰める。
They want to try and push themselves.
いや詰めはしない。後ろの建物行ったね。いやこの後だね。あの上の取り合いだからね。上のポジションの。
Sadly for the last remaining player, it's probably going to be sent on, but it is the core stick. Crust can at least go out with a little bit of smelly gas alongside himself.
まず1ポイント取って。 さあこれ GKS もポジションがない。ウーシー行くしかないか。オプティックオプティック切るきた。おオプティック取りきた。でもこうなったらさこうなったらオキシジン圧倒的有利だよ。エペギャングがエペギャングがあれだったらあでもエペギャングも悪くない。ポジションいいとこ取ったね。いやいいね。さあこれで1対1。さあこれでボーナスポイントがかかるオキシジン。さあボーナスチャンス。さあ取りたいぞこれは。1ポイント追加という。しかもオキシジンはちょっと1周目か2周目こけてたのでここ取れたらかなりでかい。カタリス壁で手前まで張り付いて純粋なファイト。構成的にはいやでもどっちもあんま変わらない。もうアルティメットないからな。 エネルギーバリケードで1回やって、でグレープンがあるんじゃないか。エペギャンググレーがありそう。それでくる。さあどちら勝つ。エペギャングバランスオキシジンボーナスポイントがかかる。あーエペギャングだ。ボーナスならず。ボーナスは未だにフナティックのものと。いやー面白かった。最後はエペギャング、ちゃんとランサー取ってるチームが勝ったね。今日は AB 試合 AB の6試合のみですね。なのでこれで終わりです。よいしょ。さあということで6試合終わりました。僕は眠たいのでパッパと終わらして寝たいと思います、この配信。でバトルファイ見るので、皆さんネタバレ嫌な方はバトルファイを見るのでブラッドバックしてください。あと10秒後に結果見ます。10、9、8、7、6、5、4、3、2、1、ドン。はい、ということで本日の、1位はオキシジェン78ポイント、2位はダークゼロ。ダークゼロが2位ですね。また2位。SSG が53ポイント、エレベート52ポイント、GKS40 ポイント、TSM は耐えましたね。6位耐えました。39ポイント。耐えたね、ダークゼロ TSM。少しでも LG が落ちちゃったか。12位というちょっと落ちちゃったね。他はこのような感じですね。ダークゼロ TSM は安定してます。TSM 少しこけたとはいえ、6位という、別に悪くないボーダーですね。という感じでした。ということで皆さん見ていただきありがとうございました。ミラー配信、僕ちょっと寝てないので早めに寝たいと思います。また NA だとかね、パクノス両方とも一緒に見ていきましょうという感じで今日は終わりたいと思います。お疲れ様でした。また次回のミラーで